Right, good morning and welcome to Friday's OTBAM. Adrian with you this morning, and our regular co-host Paul Howard is sitting it out this week, and Owen Sheehan is stepping in for the day. Good morning to you, Owen.
Honoured to fill such big shoes.
How are you getting on?
Good, how are you?
Are you all talked out about the 150,000 people in wherever it was?
I can talk about it if you want.
Are you all talked out is what I'm asking you?
What do you mean all talked out?
Like,
as
have
in,
you
I'm
been
like
just
sick of
badgering
talking
about
about
it? Yeah, exactly, yeah.
No, not really, no. I could still talk for years and years and years about this.
150,000 years. A lot of on-street recognition. I'm presuming there's a lot of, hey, you're the guy.
Yeah, you know me. Yeah, that's it. That's exactly how I lead my life.
Are there many people saying that to you?
No.
Because it had widespread. I found a lot of people who would be peripheral consumers of off-the-ball content would have been like, oh, that guy.
There's not widespread viewing of it. As I said to Jared the other morning, there's about 10 people who've watched it 1,000 times, and that is the reason why the view count is
I'm
so
one
high.
of those. I found that I can't let it pass in my timeline. You know the way there's sort of things that you see 100 times and you're like, I've seen that right, it's grand. I can't let it pass no matter what's going on without having an old cheeky look at it.
Yeah, it's not really the same for me, but I do get that sense. There are certain things that come back up on the internet every so often, and I can't not click on them.
Yeah.
But I'm glad that video is giving you that effect.
It's your Dave McIntyre flopping into the pool out at the National Aquatic Centre when they did the diving test that time.
Well, that's far funnier. That's far better. That's... And he was in a healthy state of mind at that point, so I think that's far funnier.
The flap into the pool might suggest otherwise, but yeah, no, it was good. It was entertaining.
Well, you're very welcome.
How's your mate getting on? It was actually your Uber that was right there, was it?
Yeah, that was why we ran into that situation, like lacking in Wi-Fi. We kind of had to stand beside a Starbucks or whatever it was just to get free Wi-Fi, and you saw these bright lights coming down the street.
You were like, what is this?
They saw two men standing there static, and they were like, this is perfect, ripe opportunity for us to get some good content for ABC2 or whatever it was.
Well,
and just at that moment, the Uber came a little bit too late.
No, it was hugely entertaining. I'd say the guy was like, because we've all been there, you're like, oh my God, this is gold dust, keep it rolling. And like, by the way, your mate, I'm sure he's a lovely guy, but I'd say the interview was like, listen, just shut up, you shut up, just stop it.
Well, no, I think there was a bit cut at the end where he goes on for a little bit longer and kind of talks about how the draft is unfair and stuff like that. So
he wasn't looking for that.
He wasn't looking for that, and I think he was talking about us on breakfast radio the next morning and stuff. I didn't actually listen to that, but that reporter went out the following night again to look for more unsuspecting people who would speak into the microphone. So I don't know about that.
He really should have just got in contact with G and said, listen, I'll be at Starbucks there about 10 o'clock. Get a few beers in on me and I'll see you there.
Funny thing is, we were right there again the following night. He just missed us.
We have obviously a packed show up coming for you over the next while. We were at the Aviva Stadium last night for an off-the-ball road show. Steve McManaman was there, all in association with Boyle Sports. Kenny Cunningham was there. And Kenny's fairly beloved by the people, it turns out. I mean, we shouldn't be overly surprised by this, but I think there's like the second, maybe third coming of Kenny Cunningham in a lot of ways, that people are beginning to understand that this guy is an unbelievable storyteller and an amazing character.
I didn't hear any of last night.
Yeah.
So you're going to have to explain to me, was this off air, was this on air, was this...
Most of it was off air, I won't lie to you. There was 15 minutes talking about Violet's Cafe. I can't quite remember. He did tell me in great detail where exactly it was.
Dorset Street.
Is it Dorset Street?
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about this in the show yesterday, did you?
No, he talks about it off air every single morning.
Fried bread come up?
Fried bread comes up every single morning.
And there was a secret to the fried bread. I'm not going to reveal what it was, but Kenny sort of... In the true tradition of a great Kerry storyteller, sort of dragged the story out for about 14 minutes about what the key of this fried bread was, and then delivered the news. But obviously most people were there to see Steve McManaman, and he was hugely entertaining. The full thing is up on offtheball.com and on the YouTube channel and all that sort of stuff. He was hugely entertaining, excellent, spoke about his time at Liverpool, the departure for Real Madrid, some of the relationships he had, a story about Robbie Fowler almost sneaking onto the Real Madrid bus to celebrate one of their Champions League wins or whatever it was, and then eventually kind of got with the full T-shirt on him and all that, the Campione, and then deciding, maybe I might just step off the bus before it takes him to the streets. But Steve McLennan was there. His son was with him. Son was, I'm not amazing at estimating ages, but I'm going to say sort of 7 or 8 kind of direction, and had his little tablet with him and was sort of watching cartoons most of the night. Like, his world, it's like, this lad is at this show again. He's telling the same old shit stories that I've heard a million times.
Nobody thinks their dad is cool.
But the Liverpool fans are like, oh my God, it's Steve McManaman. I've never heard this stuff before. So the kid is spending his time watching cartoons and like eating chocolate and enjoying all that kind of thing. And he, at some point or another,
Tommy doesn't realise he's got to talk back on both of our
I've just heard
both of our
an
heads.
instruction there from the producer that has given me a heads up to something upcoming that I wasn't aware of, which is fantastic. Anyway, he's watching his cartoons, and at some point or another, something that's going on in the room, because he's got his headphones on, has obviously permeated the headset, and he's heard Steve McManaman talking about Real Madrid. So I noticed at one point he was sitting right beside the production booth. He's YouTubing football, and I'm like, oh right, he must be like, he's a Liverpool kid. He's obviously mad into soccer, and he's like YouTubing some highlights, whatever. And I went over and I was like, oh, what sort of thing are you looking at? He had YouTubed Steve McManaman, Real Madrid. I was looking at the best bits.
I really hope that was like a sort of moment of realisation for him, that he realises who Steve McManaman is, and he realises what Real Madrid is.
This lad's all right. This lad, he can play football.
That gives me so much more respect for Steve McManaman, that he's not one of those people who's like gloating at home and stuff, that his son actually has to go to an off-the-ball roadshow to realise that he's linked with Real Madrid.
It's true though, isn't it? Like, I mean, if you were the kid of a very famous sports person, you probably wouldn't spend a lot of time. Like, there's probably at some point a dawning realisation when you do that thing of YouTubing your dad and a team and going, oh, like, because it's just, to you, it's just noise. It's just like, yeah, he's just your dad. Like, I don't care about that stuff. I've heard you talk about it a million times. It's boring. Stop going on about it. Everybody's stopping us in the street getting photographs. I don't want to know about it. But then suddenly it's like a dawning realisation that, holy shit, this guy was good.
Yeah. Your kids are going to be Googling you soon, YouTubing you soon.
And will they be having the same conclusion?
They'll find a loop of you asking people about what are they going to do for the weekend, which is better than playing for Real Madrid, I think.
Do you think that the Nashville interview is going to sustain itself for, I mean, what age are you now, 24?
Yeah.
Another 15-ish years? I mean, maybe much less than that, to the point that you're in the same scenario.
Well, what are you suggesting?
Like when you have kids, that they'll be going, Owen Sheehan, Nashville.
It's not on YouTube, thankfully, and who knows, YouTube may not be around in 15 years.
Where will be?
Right, so
we've got
a big surprise.
Oh, right.
As you may guess, Adrian's already been tipped off about this. It's actually a surprise, it was supposed to be a surprise of a very good sort, because you might remember in January we did our sporting predictions, our crystal ball for 2019. Here were our predictions for the Masters. Brooks Koepka, me, Jordan Spieth, Nathan Jordan Spieth, and Adrian Tiger Woods. Let's hear what he had to say.
Reminded that I've gone for Tiger because I'm not safe and I'm not boring, and that's why I've gone for Tiger Woods.
Yeah, it's really unsafe option.
Look, he's given loads of indications over the last 12 months or 6 months that he's actually back and he can do this thing and he can play and he can compete and he can contend and he can win. And why not? Why not?
Well done. Good call. Good shout.
When was that recorded?
January.
Yeah?
Feeling pretty smug. Have you got the call up from Golf Weekly yet?
No, Golf Weekly they're just too nerdy to have somebody as good as me on board, to be honest with you. Yeah, look, it was a total punt, clearly. But
yeah,
like
picking the best golfer of all time,
no,
big punt.
But also not a well, come on now, not a ridiculous punt. I mean, it wasn't. There weren't a lot of people at that point saying that Tiger Woods. There was a debate. There was definitely a debate. Is this guy ever going to win a major or not? He'd won the Tour Championship at the back end of 2018. Hadn't done terribly, obviously, at the Masters last year. Not amazingly, made the cut, top 50, I think, somewhere. So yeah, like, it's not. I'm not sitting there saying, "Whoa." I mean, it was so obvious that he was going to win the thing. But like an educated punt, Jordan Spieth, come on, do us a favour.
You just call yourself educated. I think that's where we end this conversation right now. Congratulations, and that is the last time I ever do something nice for you on a Friday morning.
Right, we have plenty coming up for you over the next while. Do want to let you know though that all of this week on OTBAM we're giving you some great prizes for any cyclist or anyone who wants to get into cycling as we celebrate the launch of the new cycling website welovecycling.ie. You can win a Skoda cycling jersey and cycling shorts, branded hoodie, t-shirt, cap, water bottle, the whole kit and caboodle. To enter, just send us in your favourite place to cycle in Ireland, and we want photographic evidence as well. There's been some absolute beauties coming through during the week. We've been sending some lovely spots so far this week. The Waterford Greenways come in, route around Sligo, the Wild Atlantic Way, Kerry's stretch, Kenny's stretch from Coolock to Howth. I've done that. It's nice. It's tough. Some really nice stuff from Kerry has come in as well during the week, actually. I'm sure you're very familiar with cycling around Kerry, are you?
But I do have a very famous cycle around the county, so it's...
which you've done, and
that's
the point I'm getting to.
I've driven around it.
WeLoveCycling.ie includes helpful tips for all cyclists, from buying bikes to nutritional advice and information on the best cycle routes around Ireland. So do get involved, check out our social channels and you'll see exactly how to do just that. Right, packed show for you coming up over the next while. We're going to let you know what's happening in the newspaper this morning very shortly. Mike McCarthy is going to join us on the line to talk about the Pro 14 quarter-finals this weekend, and also maybe a little cheeky look ahead to the Heineken Cup final as well, so that's coming your way very shortly. Owen's been getting stuck into the New York GAA archives and promises is going to be the highlight of the show, so no pressure there, Owen. Also, we're going to gaze into, we've seen my quality predictions, so you can expect great things when we stare into our individual 2019 crystal balls. We'll be joined by another couple of off-the-ballers a little bit later, so that's the GAA football season upcoming. Sports news of Phil Egan. Caster Semenya has been obviously in the news all this week. Ross Tucker has been central to this case and really is a one-stop shop for everything you need to know on it and where this story is going to go as well. So that is around about 9:30. So that is the show this morning. Do get involved in the hashtag OTBAM. We do want to hear from you. Keep all of your comments coming in, but for now it's time for the papers. Yeah, it's nearly 8 o'clock. We can kick things off with the Irish Daily Mail here. Alexis Shock is the exclusive here by Sammy Mockball on the Irish Daily Mail this morning. Manchester United prepared to pay half of Alexis Sanchez's mammoth £26 million salary to secure him a move this summer. United Chiefs are aware that Sanchez £500,000 a week wage, inclusive of bonuses, will prove a major stumbling block in an unbelievable show of self-awareness. Mine's a double. Alexander Lacazette scoring twice last night. Don't label me as defensive, says the former Waterford manager Derek McGrath, who might be interested in getting back involved in the game.
The Irish Times leads with Lacazette double, puts Arsenal in command. They beat Valencia 3-1 last night in the Europa League. Pedro, meanwhile, pegs back Frankfurt with precious away goal that finished 1-1 in that one. And the top story there, Messi made Klopp pay a costly price for his high-risk tactics. It's Andy Hunter saying that attacking Barca is a brave gambit, but it can also leave teams fatally exposed.
The Herald, meanwhile, will push to the end. Milner promises that Liverpool will not let standards slip.
The Irish Daily Star then goes with Strop the Rot. Van Dijk says there's no time to sulk. Meanwhile, Wes's gesture to all clubs. Wes Hoolahan is set to donate part of his testimonial funds to Shelbourne and Belvedere football clubs in a great show of benevolence. And Top Gunners is the headline in the Arsenal match last night at Alexandre Lacazette and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang on the scoreline.
They always go the extra mile with a good photograph on the Irish Examiner of a Friday, and that's the case this morning is City rising. John Cotter in the hot seat as Cork begin life after John Caulfield, also running the Guards column in there, and much more besides.
The back page of the Sun goes with Piggy Baku, lovely doubly as Laka has final say for Gunners. Pedicure for Blues, meanwhile, as they draw with Frankfurt 1-1. And the top story here at the top of the page is Jan K.O. Fear was pants. So Maurizio Pochettino knew Jan Vertonghen was not concussed when he refused to bare his backside. An independent neurologist has confirmed the Spurs ace did not have concussion during their 1-0 Champions League semi-final loss. Vertonghen will miss the Premier League game, but Spurs were slammed for letting Vertonghen play, and Poch said, watch when he changed his shorts in the tunnel. He was a little bit worried about changing in front of everyone.
Right.
Therefore,
what do we conclude from that?
Not concussed.
Jesus. The Irish Independent this morning, Walsh Park will be a sellout for Waterford's return home, writes Martin Brennan here. This is ahead of the return of the All-Ireland Hurling Championship. Next Sunday week is the timeline for that, and the return of Walsh Park as well. I'm sure delighted, all the Waterford fans are delighted with that. Owen Kelly, one of the lines of this morning, writes Donegal Boylan, the Irish Independent, has been called into the answer his county's call, and he's back with Liam Sheedy as part of that team. He's going to work with some of their free takers as teams primarily, and Derek McGrath leaving the door open for an inter-county return. And Fergus McFadden's World Cup hopes hit by headbutt ban. He's out for 6 weeks, writes David Kelly.
The front page of the Racing Post goes with what a race. It's Friday, it's 5:30, and it's a crackerjack. It's the Punchestown Champion Hurdle, and you can see Super Sunday, Bouverdare, Applesjade and Mellon there, pictured on the front of the Racing Post. The back of the Racing Post is Toffees on target. Everton should continue their impressive late-season form. It's Everton against Burnley tonight at 8 o'clock.
The Times Ireland edition, meanwhile, the photograph here, as it is the case in a lot of the newspapers this morning, reflections on Arsenal's 3-1 win over Valencia in the Europa League last night. London restores pride, like I said, on the double there, and Eintracht Frankfurt won, Chelsea won the other result. 6-week ban for McFadden, writes Gary Doyle there, and Jean Klein as well on Munster's season run-in.
The main story on the back page of The Guardian comes from Malahide. Complete disregard, Morgan rails at Hales over ban's effect on England. A bit of controversy in the England cricket camp at the moment, and Tower of Strength is their headline in Arsenal. Lacazette fires Arsenal into first leg lead over Valencia as Chelsea hit back to keep all English final on the cards.
The Irish Daily Mirror, meanwhile, late Gunners strike and it's Oba and out.
Yeah, it sure is. The Oba, you're not a sub-editor unless you've used Oba over at some point. Yeah.
Chins Up is the other good one I've enjoyed here. David Maddock writing that Andy Robertson warning that gutted Reds to avoid Messi hangover at Toon, but that they can get it done, which was very much a tone that came up, you won't be surprised to hear, at the Aviva last night to make Liverpool fans nice and happy.
Lastly for me, the front page of the Daily Telegraph sports section is Alexandre the Great. 2-goal Lacazette puts Arsenal one step closer to first European final for 13 years.
Yeah, it's a good photograph. Features in a lot of the papers. That is the back pages for you this morning. The couple of stories that we'll just come back to very briefly. The GAA to begin with, Derek McGrath saying that I'm not a defensive manager and I really don't want to be labelled that way because you're ruining my chances of getting back involved in inter-county hurling, which I want to do at some point soon. It was something that he touched on. We did a show in Dunleary a few months ago. It was off air, and it was something he touched on that night. His frustration with this constant narrative that took hold, that he was a defensive manager, he played the sweeper system, and he used that same line about if you line up 10 good GAA people in front of me here, 7 of them will tell you, oh, you're the guy who plays the sweeper. And he said, like, that's as may be, but it's not to also necessarily say that a lot of these other teams, as he says, including Limerick, they also employ some of these tactics from time to time.
Yeah, like I'm not sure is that necessarily something that will put him out of the shop window for another big job, the association with being a defensive manager. Because ultimately, if this season becomes a repeat of last year, where, granted, last year may seem like one of the most unpredictable sporting stories we've had in years, but there's no guarantee that it's not going to be a repeat of that. Limerick looked pretty good. Galway could come back as well. Like, if Limerick do back-to-back, there will be counties looking around for somebody who will give them that edge, somebody who will be able to skew things a little bit, because after last summer, hurling is great, hurling is perfect, everything is going in an attacking vein, and all the managers are playing the right way after the scourge of Derek McGrath has been gotten rid of, which is obviously one of the biggest overreactions we've seen to a manager in recent times. That being said, I'm not so sure disassociating yourself with being a defensive manager is necessarily the best thing to do, because I think there will be teams looking around for somebody who will give them that edge defensively or whatever it may be. Being a defensive manager is not what Derek McGrath is. Solidifying a defence is what Derek McGrath did with Waterford and made them contenders.
Yeah, and I think that his record speaks for itself in a lot of ways. Like Waterford, he brought Waterford from a team that maybe might be able to get there and maybe get it done on the brink of it, obviously, a couple of times. That the final success obviously eluding him, but I do think that his record speaks for itself, and fair play to him for challenging something that he thinks is not, he's been misrepresented on, was an expression he used, which I have absolute sympathy for, that he used over the course of this piece. So,
your kindred spirits.
Kindred spirits. Owen Kelly's the other good line there from Donncha Boyle, back in with the Tipperary Hurlers. When I saw the headline, I was interested to see exactly what sort of role he's going to play, and it seems as if he is going to be working with the free takers. So obviously Liam Sheedy has looked at it and thought, Jesus, we need a bit of work here, was one of the main thoughts I had out of that. And also, like, I don't know about Owen Kelly's, he could be a tactical genius for all I know. I've absolutely no idea what his management skills would necessarily be like. I don't think that he's been involved in too many other teams, but it was a thought that definitely struck me in the last campaign, the last Ireland campaign, that we were, I think to say we were misfiring doesn't quite capture what was actually a play like.
The last rugby campaign?
No, football. That we didn't essentially have any strikers. And I had said at the time, I think including on this show, that we should have got Robbie Keane involved at that stage. And not on the basis of bringing him in to talk about tactics or setup or shape or any of that stuff, just to come in and work with the strikers. It's just, I think it's something that maybe teams, maybe rugby does a little bit, but teams probably don't do enough of.
For sure. And also as well, I think this is the perfect time to be bringing a new coach in, because what are we talking? Have we done half the year already when it comes to training? Say they've been back since November. That's 7 months ago. We've done more than half the year, really, even if you take out the April club month as not an inter-county month. Like, things, if they're going to get stale at any point when it comes to training, when it comes to drills or to the management, it's going to have happened by now. Now is the perfect time to do it. This is the time. This is the home stretch. As mad as that seems, this is the home stretch, even though it is the most important part of the competition. It is the shortest stretch that they will have all year. And that new impetus could give them the edge, could give a section of the team the edge, or even just a character that Owen Kelly is. Like, I don't know Owen Kelly, but just seeing him on television, listening to him on the show here sometimes, he seems like a fairly collected guy. He seems like the type of fella that previous Tipperary camps might have used when things started to go into a little bit of disarray. Should have used. Right. Could have used. Could have done worse things than use. Owen Kelly for sure. I think this is a great move.
Yeah. And also, it's not like when I'm talking about bringing Robbie Keane in, it's, you know, the fact that he's not talking about tactics necessarily or any of that sort of stuff. It's like the players have to respect this guy who comes in, who's been there and done it. It's not like, well, who is this schmuck that's coming into such this thing? No matter who I am, I'm like, well, it's Owen Kelly. He's like top scorer of all time.
Yeah, like
talking about.
It's hard to maintain that without outside influences in terms of respecting whatever the setup is, respecting your own position and keeping yourself grounded, especially the success that Tipperary had a couple of years ago, and it looked like they were going to go on to conquer for years. Like, Tipperary have the biggest potential to make the biggest leap this year of all the hurling counties, but also Tipperary have this potential to be one of the biggest underperformers, or we will look back on this Tipperary team as the shoulda, coulda, woulda team. Despite the fact that they are All-Ireland winners, they could have won more, and this is perhaps the sort of thing that will actually tell a lot of the players there, listen, there are more important things in this group of players, there are more important people than you, keep your feet on the ground and play your hurling, because you're an unbelievably talented group of players.
Anything else that you want to touch on the newspapers? The Arsenal game, I don't know if you had any opportunity to see that last night.
Well, eyes glued to Arsenal last night. You know,
really?
Well, 100%.
Okay.
Of course I was. It's the Europa League, the competition that Arsenal are probably going to get beaten in 4-0 next week, just because every time they build your hopes up, they tend to snatch them away. I thought the most emblematic Arsenal moment that happened last night was Alexandre Lacazette. 2 goals scored on a hat-trick in the box, Europa League semi-final. So you'd expect, you've scored 2 goals in the Europa League semi-final, you're a pretty good striker, you're continental level at the very worst. Ball in the air, beautiful ball from Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. All there was for Lacazette to head the ball home, and he didn't even head the ball, it just hit his belly. To be fair, there was a defender who ran in front of him and kind of distracted him, but I was like, that kind of sums up what Arsenal have always been.
I know what you're saying. But I mean, it did happen. The exact same thing happened to Barcelona the other night as well. In added time, they've like a one-on-one. You're like, they're going to score this. There's no other outcome, and the tie is dead. And they somehow managed to botch it.
Yeah, well, that would be a rather hilarious thing to look back on next week if Liverpool were to do an Istanbul-esque turnaround at Anfield, that Dembele miss.
I don't think we're going to need to worry about that.
No, not really. I think the All-London final it's obviously on course for happening now. Chelsea will be favourites, having taken the away goal, and Arsenal as well. So if Arsenal could pick one era of Chelsea team to play in the Europa League final, it's probably this, because this Chelsea team is the most resembling of an Arsenal team that we've had in recent years, as in they have a huge potential to bottle things as well. Who can bottle it least over the next month really is the $1 million question.
That should be the Europa League. UEFA should send them an email today and say, listen, I've got an idea for a...
The mascot could be just a bottle.
Right, that is the newspapers. It's 8:10 on this Friday morning. Delighted to have you along with us. We've plenty more coming your way over the next hour and a little bit. Mike McCarthy is going to join us next. We're going to look ahead to that weekend of Pro 14 quarterfinals and a couple of other bits and bobs to touch on with Mike as well. But first, before all of that, Kieran Donaghy joined us in studio for episode 12 of the Shot Clock this week. We also caught up with the Ireland and Sheffield United defender John Egan, who's now, as we know, a Premier League footballer.
How proud of you the fact that you, as you said, through all these injuries, through all them knocks, are going to be lacing up your boots, sitting in Premier League dressing rooms next year, ready to go to war with your teammate, who you've got a great manager, you'll strengthen the squad. What are your goals yourself for next year?
Well, to be honest, it hasn't even kind of sunk in yet, but even thinking about it there just is unbelievable. I mean, goals for us next year now. Obviously, we have to go away and, kind of try to switch off in the summer and relax. But, when we come back, the goals have got to be to come in and, try to take to the Premier League like we've kind of taken to this division, not to be afraid of it and go and try and attack it. And, we've seen how well teams have done, in the past when they've come up, and, it'll be up to us now to go in and, keep our distinctive style and, go into it. And there's going to be times when you're going to be up against it. Obviously, the top 6 teams are, they're top teams, top players from all over the world. The Premier League is like a world league now. So, yeah, we no doubt there's going to be some tough games. But I think if we keep to our principles, I think that we'll have a good season, hopefully.
Yeah, those celebrations were long-lived as well. There's plenty of good stuff doing the rounds on social media.
Yeah, great. You've got to have a figurehead like that who's going to lead the sing-song.
Yeah.
If you don't have one of those, then there's no point getting promoted.
No.
Just don't even bother getting promoted. Like, that is the most important signing you can make. As somebody who can lead the chant, who can lead the celebrations when you do eventually get back to the top tier. Great to have him up there. It's going to be Sheffield United, kind of one of those stories that a lot of Irish people have begun to support as the year has gone by. The thing is, this championship season has just been absolute madness, and it's only going to get better when we get to the playoffs.
Yeah, there was an edge to it as well, to the singing afterwards, to his song particularly. There was a bit of spiciness about it. Is that the euphemism?
Well, he is from Cork. I mean, you've got to add spice to every single thing if you're from Cork, and that's why they're a great bunch of people.
Anthony Cork on YouTube says, Player of the Week should go to Kenny Cunningham. 10 out of 10 rate multiple times this week.
Every single
appearance really is given something a little bit different.
So before the show last night, what was it, just 15 minutes of stand-up?
That was just for a very select audience, a bespoke audience of about 5 people on
it was backstage?
Production staff backstage, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And was that sort of a pilot for...
I mean, I don't think...
Live at the Apollo,
Kenny
Cunningham?
Thinking, but it should have been, So, yeah, I think that maybe we might look into that, a bit of a stand-up routine. Kenny Cunningham. Like the Kenny Cunningham and Mike McCarthy show will be something I'd pay money for.
I would pay big money to even be involved in that.
Yeah. Mike, good morning to you.
Morning, lads. How are you doing?
Are you up for a two-handed routine, yourself and Kenny Cunningham? Take on the laughter lunge?
Oh, yeah, I get me involved, but I'm really excited to show you my T-shirt I'm wearing today, and I'll be wearing it for the Champions Cup final next week. Shall I stand up so you can see it?
Ah, the real Dev.
The Leinster supporters sent it to me, so I've got it. I'm just giving it a trial run, ready for the final next week, and I wore it for the semi-final against Toulouse out in Mallorca. So very proud of it. The real Dev.
The great irony there is Dev on a blue shirt.
Fantastic gag. Who's an actual stand-up comedian. Yeah, I'm not in the slightest bit surprised to see you wearing that, Mike. It's
it's my new pajama top.
We're never going to get through a chat with you without some reference to how great Devin Toner is. But he's not playing this weekend, obviously. The Pro 14, I don't know how engaged you are by the quarterfinals, as they're known. Matt Williams has written about it in the Irish Times this morning. He can't get his head around why they need to be called quarterfinals at all. 2 quarterfinals and not 4, obviously. The lack of interest as well has been written about across some of the newspapers this morning. Not very many people talking about the games themselves. Do you find it a bit weird we're at this stage and people aren't quite engaged by it?
Yeah, I suppose it is a bit strange when I'm across the water now, living in Newcastle. But I really haven't seen heard too much about it. Being the quarterfinals, you'd expect to hear a fair bit of noise, but I think especially the Connacht Ulster game there, that's a pretty exciting one. Then the Munster Treviso one, maybe not quite as exciting, but certainly that Connacht Ulster one is there's a lot riding on it. I think Ulster will be favourites at home, but Connacht are going in with a lot of confidence, having won twice this season, beating Ulster at Ravenhill for the first time in 58 years. Connacht have beaten Ulster the last 3 times, actually. They beat them last season at the sports ground, then obviously twice this season. So there's a lot of hurt there. I think Ulster are certainly a different team to where they were at the start of the season. When you look back now at that the hammering away to Munster, that seems a distant memory. But Dan McFarlane's come in. I think he's done a fantastic job. He talks about that fight for every inch mentality, and you're certainly starting to see that. Looking back to that game at the Aviva, where they probably should have won and they were so close to winning. They really are showing some great form, and the only concern for me with Ulster is that they don't have the same kind of depth that not many teams do that Leinster would have. But a mixture of this season of Dan McFarlane coming in doing a great job, but also the likes you have to have a bit of luck as well, and you've seen that with the likes of Marcel Coetzee being fit this season. I think he played 5 games in 2 years. His first 2 years at Ulster. This season he's played 21 games alone, so he's a massive player for them. But as I said, Ulster will certainly be hurting. They want to go out on a high. They want to, leave the guys who are leaving, go out on a massive high. The likes of Rory Best, Darren Cave, they're the kind of last remaining 2 of the old guard, with the likes of Chris Henry, Tommy Bowe, Andrew Trimble having all gone recently. So the lads have name-checked them in the week in terms of wanting to send those guys off with the last game at Ravenhill.
Yeah, there's that factor. There's a little bit of momentum maybe behind Ulster as well, particularly given the win last week. I wonder, from the Connacht point of view though, like you say, they've obviously beaten Ulster at Ravenhill, one of the few, I think maybe only team to have beaten Ulster at home this season. Is that a tangible factor for them? I'm sure it's something they'll be speaking about this week.
Well, yeah, reading Andy Friend's comments in the week, they seem very confident from their camp. Obviously, we've mentioned that winning up there for the first time in 58 years has taken that hoodoo off their back, so they now believe they can go up there and they can win. Connacht have had a revival this season, a bit similar to Ulster, having won the Pro 12 in 2016. Went off the boil with Kieran Keane. I think it's well known his man management skills of the players was very poor. The players weren't playing for him, and Friends come in. The lads really respect him. They think he's a great coach, and you can really see how the guys are playing for him. Connacht played Munster last week, and I think they kept their powder dry. They didn't have a full strength team out, so they're ready to really empty the tank into this game at Ravenhill. And even reading comments there that normally Connacht would be on a mad Monday at this point in time. So it's great to have all 4 provinces playing for something at the end of the season.
Who's going to win that one?
I think Ulster will win it. I think just they're carrying a lot of hurt from losing the last 3 games to Connacht. I think Ulster have really progressed under Dan McFarland, who's a great coach. I worked with him at Connacht for many years. He's a good motivator. He's very good technically. So that, with the form they're showing, nearly beating Leinster at the Aviva. They had a bad loss to Glasgow the week after, but maybe that's because they put so much into that Leinster game. But then, they backed up that Leinster game by beating Edinburgh, a Richard Cockerell Edinburgh side away at Murrayfield. So, for me, I think Ulster are going to have too much for Connacht, but, I certainly don't think it's going to be any kind of a pushover.
Yeah, that's tomorrow evening in Belfast, and then the other one tomorrow afternoon, Munster, Benetton. I mean, I mentioned at the very top about the lack of engagement. Munster are finding it hard to shift tickets for this one. They've had to do a kids go free deal for it, which is fair enough. They want to get bums on seats, obviously. The Munster fans obviously think that it's a foregone conclusion. Is it?
I think so, yeah. I think, when you look, Munster have got 47 points out of a possible 50 in their 10 home games this new year. So they're out and out favourites. It's great to see Treviso, the first Italian side to qualify for the knockout stages. And you saw that performance against Leinster at the RDS. They're very physical. They're very annoying to play against. They've got a very strong maul, strong set piece. I think 7 of the pack are Italian internationals, and then they've got some dangerous backs out wide. But for me, Munster at home is, Munster are formidable at home. It's going to be. I think it's going to be quite a big score. Also, Munster have beaten them twice this season already. They beat them away from home, which was close the last game, but they scored 6 tries against them at the start of the season. So for that game, Munster I'd say are out and out favourites. But there's a lot on the line for Munster as well. You got the likes of Jean Klein playing for possibly for a World Cup spot. He qualifies in September. Irish qualified in September. He'd missed the warm-up games, so he's up against it. But if there's injuries and he's performing well, he's got his name as a possible to go on that tour to Japan. And again, going back to there is such a lot to play for. Going back to that Connacht Ulster game, Jack Carty, the form he's shown. really playing for places on that tour to Japan.
How close is John Klein to getting on that plane right now?
Well, I think he's consistently been a great performer for Munster, and I think Tadhg Beirne coming in they really complement each other. While John Klein wouldn't be going for the poachers and as athletic and mobile in the line-out, he brings a different element of physicality, a big size difference, a tight head scrummaging lock, and I think they complement each other really, really well. And as I said, consistency, week in, week out, he delivers, he plays well, he's very physical, and I'm sure he must be on the strength and depth we've got at the moment. The second row, we saw the likes of Quinn Roux stepping in when he wasn't even in the squad for the Six Nations, Tadhg Beirne, Alton Delan, and he just needs to keep playing well. And if he, as I said, he won't be able to play in those warm-up games because he won't be qualified, but if there is a few injuries, he could be on that plane to Japan.
You mentioned there that Treviso are very annoying to play against, which is definitely true. And I wonder in a very strange way, Mike, if there's something Munster can learn from that, and maybe they already have those lessons learned, because ultimately if they beat Treviso, they have to go to the RDS, and we saw what happened over Christmas when Munster got in Leinster's grill a little bit. The result went their way. Granted, it wasn't in the RDS, but I wonder, is there a little bit of a lesson they can take from that the week after next, if they get to that semi-final, they could go into full-out war again?
Oh, I've no doubt it would be a full-out war as well, because Munster really are hurting. They haven't won silverware, I think, for 7 years now. So they were very close last year at the RDS. It was a very close game at the RDS last year. So I'm sure each time they play Leinster in a knockout game, they must be learning lessons, and they'll certainly be carrying a lot of hurt into that game if they do make it to the RDS. But they had the disappointment of losing heavily to Saracens, and Munster for me have got a great defence, especially playing at home at Thomond Park. But I just think they need to score more tries. That's I think their players have even spoken about it, and I think someone's coming in next season to help them with their attack side. Yeah. But great for them to hopefully have Conor Murray back, who pulled out in the warm up, and Keith Earls back as well. Because you saw what an impact Keith Earls had in that game against Edinburgh at Murrayfield. He's an absolute game changer.
Like you mentioned, Munster getting help on the attack side next year. Is there anybody on the radar, if you were in charge of Munster, who you'd be looking at as a potential attack coach?
Attack, lads, attack wasn't really my thing, but was. But look, to be honest with you, I don't really know, but I think they all know they need to be scoring more tries, and the fact they got Keith Earls back as an attacking weapon this week is massive. Like I said that Edinburgh game, he was their key attacking threat, scoring those 2 tries in Murrayfield. So to have him back is a massive plus. Conor Murray back, that's a massive plus as well. So I'm not sure who they're looking at to come in, but they're on the right track.
Yeah, it seems like they can score plenty in the Pro 14, but when it comes to the Champions Cup, it's not as free flowing. A couple of other things just to get your thoughts on before we wrap, Mike. Fergus McFadden's 6-week ban, obviously confirmed yesterday. Deserved? If it's a headbutt, it's there's some sort of ban. I'm probably not the right man to be speaking, having had a ban for that myself many years ago, playing for Connacht against Leinster. But Ferg's a great fella. He's a great player, and unfortunately, he's had a frustrating time of late with injury. He is one of the most physical backs I've ever played with. One of the most mentally strong players I've played with as well. I think he'll be a big loss. While Leinster have massive strength and depth, for me to have him with his experience and the physicality he brings, not to have him for an option for the last few games is a massive loss. But I don't think Ferg will be complaining. He probably was expecting a ban, so it's just a shame for Ferg. After all their injuries he's had over the last few seasons, I think with that hamstring he was out for a long time, and maybe there's a bit of frustration there. He has been out, and it's tough on Ferg. You chose a nice soft target.
In terms of what? Oh, Rocky Elsom, yeah. See, that was a derby back in the day when I was playing for Connacht against Leinster, and a scrap under the post instigated by Leo. So. It's funny. We've laughed about it plenty of times since, but those
Yeah,
derbies.
of all the people on the pitch, Mike, to sort of launch yourself onto, I would suggest you could have chosen better targets.
Yeah, it was. I think I picked the wrong person as well because I don't think he had anything to do with it. So, yeah, I should have been going for Dev.
We all know that's not true. Newcastle, obviously, 8 days out. I'm assuming that the city is getting itself prepared, or is it?
Oh no, it is big time. I mean, all the hoardings and all the promotions up, so it's great to see. As you know, Newcastle is an out and out mad football city. I remember playing at Newcastle Falcons about 10 years ago. Newcastle United got relegated and they were still filling the stadium 55,000 week in, week out. So it is a football mad city, but the interest for the final up in the northeast has been massive. We saw a few World Cup games there, and Newcastle did a fantastic job in hosting the rugby up there, so we've seen they can do it, and they can do a really good job of it. England are playing Italy there for a World Cup warm-up game, so it's not new having rugby up there, but what a fantastic city. I think people who haven't been there are going to have a very exciting weekend. Before I signed for Newcastle from Connacht, I'd never been there before. I had a bit of a view in my head that it wasn't the nicest of places, but I couldn't have been further from the truth. You've got beautiful Northumberland countryside, Tynemouth Beach, lovely sandy beaches, and then the city's fantastic. You've obviously heard it's a pretty good night out. Plenty of places to go, plenty of things to do, great architecture in the city. So people are going to have a great time over there. It really is a party city. Whether you're going out the weekend or midweek, I think it's the most popular place to go to university in the UK, or one of them anyway, because it certainly is a fantastic night out.
Okay, cool. We might come back to you next week to look into that game in a bit more detail and get your best recommendations as well for all of our viewers as to where to go in Newcastle. Mike, for a minute, thanks a million.
Thanks very much, guys. Cheers.
Thanks a lot. Mike McCarthy there on the line with his Big Dev, real Big Dev t-shirt.
It's a nice one, I like it.
They do a very good line. The Leinster fans do a very good line in quirky t-shirts, that being the latest one.
I'm not familiar.
Right.
What are the other ones?
I mean, you put me on the spot.
They're all kind of that style, but I'm just trying to think.
They all have like little sort of funny slogans underneath, sort of legendary players or whatever, so yeah.
$1 million question. Double. Best achievement by any sporting team ever?
I mean, if you're putting it out there, I'm not going to disagree.
I'm asking, I'm not saying.
What do you mean best achievement by any team ever?
Well,
Irish team.
Well, like
Rugby.
your tweet last year said that
Which you've misrepresented.
Leinster winning the Pro 14 was the best achievement by any Irish team possibly ever.
Well, I'm glad at least you've said Irish team, because mostly that's misrepresented and people say that I was suggesting worldwide.
Possibly the greatest team we've ever seen, possibly ever. In any sport.
Yeah, but I mean, in Ireland was the context. The we part of that was Ireland.
Right.
Which tends to get looked over.
What's the bigger achievement then? Leinster doing the double-double or Dublin doing the 5 in a row? Let's keep it Irish. The fact that you're even considering this.
Well, so that suggests that you think it's Dublin.
Yes.
But that's why would you?
Well, like the more that the seconds have ticked by there, the more I'm like, well.
I think it's an excellent question, and I'm struggling to come up with a black and white answer for you. But
let's put out a Twitter poll and figure out what people
I'm leaning
think.
towards Leinster, but I mean,
I'm leaning towards Dublin.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think they're worlds apart. I think they're both hugely significant. Like the international aspect of rugby obviously is one major factor. Mm-hmm. But
and the fact that
I mean, are there fewer? There were probably fewer teams that would have been at the elite level. In like when you start off a GAA, when you start off a football season, you're thinking about 2 or 3 teams, 4 teams that might have a shot at winning it. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's no different in the Heineken Cup.
Certainly no different in the Pro 14. In the Heineken Cup, we maybe make an argument for 5 or 6.
The Pro 14, you can't. The Pro 14 is the league in this dynamic. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Dublin managed to win a few of those back to back as well.
Yeah. Right, it's 8:30 this Friday morning. We're bringing you through the archives next on OTBAM. I did promise you it's going to be the best item of the morning, so stay tuned for that. It's coming your way in just a couple of minutes. But first, we want to bring you this. It's former Waterford manager Derek McGrath. He's talking to Nathan in an interview that's coming up on Saturdays off the ball from 1 o'clock. He's talking to Nathan here about how he dealt with Maurice Shanahan's mental health struggles.
When you think about learnings, Nathan, I'd actually be horrified to say that definitely was not overly selfish. When Maurice presented with difficulties to me initially, he was talking about how he was feeling, if you like, and there was an incident, and selfishly I would have said, Maurice, you'll be grand, you'll be fine, you'll get through it, we'll help you, blah blah blah. I actually remember almost, and it's wrong to say, but I remember taking a video. We were playing Cork in the championship that May in 2014, the day Austin Gleeson made his championship debut, and I remember going down and Morris clearly in a bad place and getting a phone and saying, Morris, look, do a video for the lads, will you? Wishing them well, you know, ahead of the match, might get some motivation. So the selfishness of me to put him in a situation, he was in a precarious situation, and yet here's me kind of thinking. So I think, look.
And what were you thinking? Were you thinking, this will make him feel part of the group?
I was thinking that, to be fair. I wasn't completely self-centred in terms of what I might get out of the group. I was also thinking, I was thinking selfishly. I was thinking motivation for the players, let's do it for Morris type approach. And I was thinking, well, it might be a way back in for him as well, an avenue back in for him. So, but the reality is you need expertise and you need help in that area, you know. But it's an interesting topic, but not a time I'd be proud of, you know.
He's maybe one of the most interesting, he is definitely one of the most interesting Irish sports people at the minute. Derek McGrath, that full interview upcoming with Nathan on Saturdays off the ball, and as you could see from Derek's t-shirt, he's teamed up with Electric Ireland and Pieta House to encourage people to experience the power of hope by registering for this year's Darkness into Light. I believe there will be record numbers on the march on May the 11th. You can head along to darknessintolight.ie for more details on that. And as I said, that full interview with Derek McGrath upcoming and off the ball tomorrow from 1 o'clock. Now, Owen, what have you got for us?
So the championship obviously starts this weekend. New York and London playing host to 2 games. One of my favourite things to do ahead of any championship weekend, pretty much for the entire summer, is just read old GAA archives, old newspapers, old books, whatever it may be, and just find some of the most bizarre stories that you could possibly find. So New York is kind of what piqued my interest this week. Like, we obviously all know about 1947, the Polo Grounds, Cavan against Kerry, who, of course, Mayo people in New York this week will claim to be, you know, the biggest kind of people behind that, with Bill O'Dwyer as mayor of New York at the time, the Bahola man getting that over the line at the time. We all know the story of the Polo Grounds, but I was thinking, like, what happened before the Polo Grounds? Was New York a big centre for big games at the time? Of course, there was never any All-Ireland finals. I was aware, though, that there was a lot of exhibition games. And let's go back to 80 years ago this year.
At the Yankee Stadium, New York, Kerry meet Galway in the American-Irish international match that's full of thrills and spills. Kerry have the stripe on their shirts and Galway on their socks. But what's a line among friends? It's the position of the ball that counts. But in this game, the ball isn't left long in any position. So sit back and watch the struggle.
So we're watching Kerry against Galway, 1939. These were the teams that contested the All-Ireland final in 1938 after a replay. Galway won that. So these are the 2 best teams in the country playing in Yankee Stadium. The 1930s are a fascinating time for these exhibition games. 1931, Kerry go on tour. 60,000 watched them beat New York at Yankee Stadium. Kerry actually returned home with enough money from that trip to buy Austin Stack Park on that occasion.
Wow.
In 1932, Mayo go. 33, Kerry go again. In 1934, it's Cavan and Galway that go. In 1935, Cavan go. In 1936, Galway go. You can see a pattern here. Some of the similar counties going.
Dinner dances, is that what we're talking about?
Dinner dances, admission fees and profit being made. It's a story as old as time in the GAA. 1937 is an interesting one. I'm interested if anybody's got any more information on this, because Cavan, Mayo and Laois go, and there's some great information in Owen Corrie's The History of Gaelic Football, the definitive history of Gaelic football it's called. It's worth digging out. And there's a line in it that suggests that Leitrim man Johnny McGoldrick defeats Mayo almost single-handedly and then collapses in dressing room with pneumonia. And I haven't been able to find any more information on this as to what actually happened after that. So I'd be appreciative if anybody's got information on that. And then 1939, the end of the decade, as we're watching here, Galway and Kerry travel together. So there's pretty much some of the footage.
I'm trying to figure out if it's any good or not. It's a bit like all over the place. A lot of 50-50 balls, like not a possession game by any stretch.
No, it was a different sport back then, for sure.
Look at the shape of the goals. Look at how
the goal was king and all that. So let's go back a little bit further. So pre-Wall Street crash, you've got I guess looser immigration controls, and therefore you've got stronger New York teams, and you kind of think of that as a significant political, societal moment in New York GAA. But the situation in Ireland, particularly politically in the 1920s, is the thing that makes things really interesting. And on that, do you want to hazard a guess as to which organisation in the 1920s may have played a part here or there in the organisation of games in New York?
Mafia.
Well, which Irish organisation?
The Mafia.
The IRA is the answer.
Okay.
So I want to focus in on 1 year, 1927 here, where Kerry set sail to the States for a tour of America. Now, Dr. Richard McElligott, who has written a book called Forging a Kingdom, which is available on Amazon, definitely worth checking out. There are some unbelievable yarns in this.
This is all an ode to Kerry, by the way, is what I've just discovered.
This is only just
It's an entire item, I mean.
This is a small part of it. So the full story is worth checking out. I'm only going to get to a little part of it. So this Kerry team in 1927 travels over. This is a 26 All-Ireland winning team. So a lot of the same players. The promoter of the event basically was not to be trusted. So after Kerry's second defeat to New York, this is all from McElligott's book, they discovered that the promoter had disappeared from the hotel they were staying in, taking with him Kerry Board's share of the profit from the gate receipts. The players then found themselves penniless, but thanks to the help of the local GAA and the New York Kerrymen's Association, they were able to secure enough funds to keep them going until they returned home. So dodgy promoters.
Who was the promoter, do we know?
His name escapes me.
Stop Bill.
It wasn't Bill.
Right, okay.
It wasn't Bill. I will get that name for you, and we'll feed it out.
Here, just to put you on the spot on, you know that.
So, to get on to the IRA. So, the IRA at this time managed to get 2 board members on the New York GAA board. So, they had a bit of power here. And there was a lot of close links, let's just say, between a lot of the Kerry players and the IRA as well at the time. And there was a lot of part in fundraising back home for the IRA. So, this is another line from the book, and which is absolutely remarkable. So, John Joe Sheehy and those players who could be trusted to be sympathetic towards the IRA agreed to smuggle home in their luggage from New York a cache of Thompson submachine guns owned by the IRA and held for safekeeping in New York. There's so much more on that in that book. Check it out. Basically, gun smuggling and fundraising for the IRA was part of the New York trips back in the day. So that was all pre-1947. Post-1947, it's a lot less kind of underhanded. It's a lot more above board. New York were actually a team to be feared. Do you want to hazard a guess at how many National League titles they won? It just actually, you don't even hazard a guess, because I did not know that they even took part in the National League. They won 3 of them. So between 1950 and 1969, New York, on certain years, took on the home winners. So you would win the National League back home, and then you'd take on New York to be world champions, or whatever it may have been described as. So their first win was in August 1950. They beat Cavan 2-8 to 12 points in Croke Park. That 1950 New York team was brilliant. They had the likes of Bill Carlos, the Roscommon legend, playing for them. Their second win was in 1964. They beat Dublin 212 to 113, a very strong Dublin team at the time. But then 1967 is one of the more interesting ones. It's actually the only newspaper article I managed to find the morning after the game. The previous 2 weren't. So we can get to the morning of the 22nd of May 1967. Title for New York. Exiles on top again in the second leg. Bearing in mind this is the Galway team that have won 3 in a row, let's have a closer look, 3 in a row All-Irelands I should say, at the top line of this match report. So aggregate score, New York 7-8, Galway 1-16. New York removing any doubt that they may have remained about their superiority over Galway when they defeated the All-Ireland champions by 4-3 to 10 points in the second leg of the 67 National League final before an estimated attendance of 15,000 at Gaelic Park yesterday. Galway of course never recovered, that was the end of it. New York putting the final nail in the coffin of the 3 in a row. That was kind of an era when New York were to be feared. Yeah. As far as I can tell, this is as good as New York were. There may be a team before the Wall Street crash where there's a lack of information, where they might have been amazing. The other kind of source for this is GAA USA, a great TG Carr documentary that Darragh O'Canada did a couple of years ago, and those 2 other books that I mentioned. It's a fascinating topic. And of course, we'll all remember what's happened over the last 20 years. 20 years they've been playing in the Connacht Championship, haven't got a single win. They did get pretty close to Roscommon in 2016, losing by a point. And of course, last year, this happened.
It's just a moment. A goal for Leitrim. It's blocked. The sides are level. The sides are level. Shane Quinn has put the ball over the bar, and we're all square at 1:15 to Asian points, and we have 40 seconds to play. 1:15 to Asian points. The sides are level. How we go to Parkshorn? Referees indicating there's 1 minute. Is there a winner? Is there a loser in Gaelic Park? Who's going to win the kick-out? Who has the confidence? A long one out to the centre. Breaking ball. Leitrim haven't won back. Can Leitrim win it by a point? On the 50-yard line. They're coming. McGovern has it. Inside to the substitute. This could win it for Leitrim. It's kicked in. Leitrim leads. Leitrim have taken the lead in Gaelic Park in New York.
There you have it.
I did say it was going to be the best item in the morning.
Well, sorry to disappoint.
I'm not saying that. It's hard to know with New York GAA what will, you talk about the strength of the team obviously over such a long period of time. You assume it never gets back to that level of competitiveness on one hand, and then the other hand you look at the investment of appetite and resources and all that sort of stuff that exists in Gaelic Games New York, and you think that maybe at some point or another they would have the clout to tempt over some players of significance to make them somewhat competitive. We're never, ever, ever really talking about them being ultimately successful, but somewhat competitive is obviously winning a few games in the championship. That's not unthinkable.
No, it's not, and I guess there's kind of a double-edged sword to it, that you tempt somebody over to New York, but then there's the other allure of New York, which is like furthering your career in certain areas. Like you look at, say, last year's New York team, which I thought is the strongest one we've seen in quite some time, the likes of Tom Caniff and particularly Jamie Clark playing for them, and then you kind of look at the players who have been in New York and have kind of decided not to play football, the likes of Neil Collins and stuff like that, who rightfully is doing really, really well in the fashion industry, wants to focus on his career. So ultimately you're living in New York. Just because you're living there doesn't necessarily mean you have to play for the team.
There's a lot of temptation as well as the other thing. But I mean, what I'm saying is if you were to lure players over with the express intention that when you come over this is what's going to happen, and you go, you're going to live like a professional athlete, you're not going to be out with 150,000 fans getting stuck in.
I wonder, is it like, this is pure, I don't know enough about the current situation there. I wonder, is it because the county championship in New York is too competitive, that if you're going to get looked after when you go over there, you're playing for one of the counties in the county championship, the New York team, they'd
have to come together collectively to say, that's your point.
The New York team isn't as important as the counties within the county championship. I don't know. That's just what my sense from at the outside.
It ultimately worked for Galway at some point, isn't that
Yeah, well, exactly. It's very true. I don't somehow see that there's going to be any shock in the car. I think Ger is saying that the spread is 20 points or something for Sunday.
It's ridiculous. I think it might even be more than that.
Right.
It's absolutely ridiculous spread that might be worth a bit of a look at some point or another.
Of course, our colleague Kevin Kilban is over in New York at the moment.
Well, I think he's there on press duty, so I'm sure he'll be.
Is he?
Yeah.
Right. I saw a Snapchat story this morning. The kind of nighttime skies of New York featured heavily.
Yeah.
And Mayo flags everywhere, really.
I'm sure he'll be sending back a lot of content over the next few days.
I'm looking forward to the analysis on Monday morning.
This thing works. Owen, thanks for that. It is almost 8:45 on this Friday morning. Still lots to come. We're going to talk to Ross Tucker shortly about the Caster Semenya Court of Arbitration for Sport case that I'm sure you've been aware of this week. And also we're all going to stare into our crystal balls out of the 2019 All-Ireland Football Championship and give you 15 different predictions. That's still to come before we leave you this morning, and there's plenty of interesting stuff in that. There you can see the various categories. They're quite loose. Like, how do you determine some of these categories is a topic that may come up over the course of this discussion.
That's the question I'm most looking forward to.
I'd like to say that we'll have a conclusion on that. I suspect we may not do. Just a reminder as well that if you can't watch us, that you can listen to us just like any other sports breakfast show. We're on offtheball.com. There's a nice shiny red listen button in the top right hand corner there. And you can just head up there and go about your day and listen to us as you do that. So in a few moments, Ger and Tommy are going to join us in the studio to bring you that crystal ball, Gaelic football predictions for the 2019 championship. Before all of that, Steve McManaman talking about at a roadshow last night in partnership with Bold Sports. He spoke about Robbie Fowler and his brother-in-law blagging their way onto Real Madrid's bus for their La Liga victory parade and partying with Ronaldo.
Robbie Fowler came over, you might know the story. Robbie Fowler came over, one of his first times. He was in Portugal on holiday. And I said, why don't you come to the game? And it was the first time he'd ever come over. So he came over with his brother-in-law, who's a painter and decorator. So they trot over, I give them a couple of tickets. Anyway, we win the league. And then after the game, it's like, right, we're on a bus going round we go down to like a fountain called Fibelis, where they party round. So I said to the growler, come with me. So we went, no. I said, here's a T-shirt which had like league winners on, whatever. White T-shirt. So we stuck that on. And he gets on the bus with all of us, jumping round and celebrating. So as we're going round, I'm like, come and get on, come round the fountain with us, And he says, no, I'll stay here. Anyway, there's all people in the crowd, they're all going, there's only one Robbie Fowler. So, there's a load of English people there. So we finished that, hundreds of thousands on the streets. And then we go to a restaurant here, talk about eating late. So we sit down to this restaurant about 2 a.m, whatever. eat our food, celebratory meal. There's loads of us there, my wife, all friends and everybody. Everybody's the same. 5 o'clock in the morning, right, let's go to a nightclub. So we go to a nightclub, carry on partying. Robbie, his painter and decorator cousin. All of us, right. And I had like a driver who used to drive me around. He came in, it was a Sunday night, Monday morning. He comes into the nightclub and he hands me my keys and he goes, I have to go. And I said, what's wrong? He said, I have to go to work. I said, what time is it? He said, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. So we leave at 9 o'clock. What do? Round to Ronaldo's house. So the party goes round to his. So we're in this like party room. There's me, Robbie, painter and decorator. Ronaldo playing pool. He's got a smoke machine on. Put the smoke machine on. Bit of music, all dancing around. There's chaos. His body's lying all around the house, drunk, and Robbie's just sitting there going, I just can't believe this. So you can imagine what the painter and decorator was like. Playing Ronaldo for pool. So,
All right, welcome back to OTBAM on this Friday morning, sometime on a Friday morning, and myself and Owen have been joined in the studio by two off-the-ball luminaries, Tommy and Ger. Hello. Good morning to you.
Morning.
He's just made his way in from the box, but Ger's come all the way in this morning to lend his weight behind or do a bit of crystal ball gazing here.
I'm.
Have we got? I was kind of trying to consider where we've got one crystal ball between us, or we've all each got our individual crystal balls.
What is our crystal ball? Is it the Saipan replica that Cabana's got signed by everybody?
We have to word with the producer and see what we need something. Sort of come up with.
This Friday show is crap, by the way. It's nowhere near as full of energy, and the guest list today is awful. If we're the guest list on Friday, what's going on?
We hit the jackpot last week, Ger, when myself and Paul Howard in the studio.
It was really good, actually.
That was fun. Back this week, and we imagined that you were sitting at home, sort of crying, looking at the show, going, "Oh my God!"
No, he wasn't.
No, I think it was at that exact moment I was being interviewed. I think it would have been around 9 a.m. Irish time when the interview was happening. So it would have been perfect. Actually,
we really missed an opportunity to get you on the line and tap into some of that pissedness, didn't we?
The last crystal ball was a big success.
We did such an amazing crystal ball in when was that?
January.
And have we ever actually even returned to that at any point? The only thing I remember from that crystal ball thing was that you picked Wales to win the Six Nations.
Yeah, you picked Tiger Woods to win the Masters.
Oh.
Why have we not gone back to this?
Because we were going to surprise you on Friday until Jerry just fucked it up.
It is Friday. I don't know what you're talking about.
What a disaster.
That's fantastic.
We're pre-recorded, by the way.
That's good.
So just feign surprise when we bring this up.
Yeah, absolutely.
On earlier in the show.
What? I did what? Right. We are on the brink of the 2019 Gaelic Football Championships. We're all going to stare into. We've decided our individual crystal balls and give you some predictions for the year ahead. So we've got 15 different categories. Going to spend about a minute in each of these and then come to some sort of a conclusion at the end of it and move on to the next one. So we're going to kick off with who everybody thinks is going to be the best goalkeeper of 2019.
It's going to be Rory Beggan. I don't necessarily think he is the best goalkeeper in the country. I still maintain, even at his age, that Stephen Cluxton is the best goalkeeper in the country. But ultimately, you judge these things on a very unfair basis. Stephen Cluxton will get to show his talents against nobody in Leinster, hopefully until the Leinster final, which we'll get to in a moment.
Owen made these questions up. Best goalkeeper, does that mean he gets the All-Star at the end of the year, or he is the best goalkeeper in the country? Because you just said you think Stephen Cluxton is the best goalkeeper, and then you said somebody else is the answer to this.
I think this year, at the end of the year, we will look back on the goalkeeper who had the best 2019 as Rory Beggan.
But that's not answering the question. The question was who is the best goalkeeper.
I mean, I do appreciate the idea that when we're explaining we're losing here, right? We clearly haven't had any
All-Star goalkeeper or best goalkeeper?
All-Star goalkeeper.
Well, that's changed.
That's just changed everything.
But otherwise, how do you determine who's right and who's wrong? Because otherwise, we just sit there in the studio again. I mean, look, let's face it. We'll probably do a Tiger Woods and forget that we ever had this conversation. But on the off chance that we do look back in it, we will need somebody else to tell us if we're right or wrong.
Well, I'm going to double down. Rory Beggan is the best goalkeeper in the country,
and will win the All-Star
unequivocally, and he will win the All-Star. Like, Beggan has a longer kick out than Morgan, so he can bomb it beyond. He
can arrow it. Tommy, we all know that.
He can arrow it like
he can
Morgan
use it as well.
He's got a better temperament than Morgan. He's better under high ball than Cluxton. Yes, he had that mistake in the All-Ireland semi-final against Tyrone last year, but we won't hold it against him.
I mean, come on.
He's the first man to score, to properly start scoring from playing Gaelic football as a goalkeeper recently. We saw the Tyrone sub-keeper do it recently. We rifled the ball into the back of the net. Rory Beggan might do that this year. I've heard of teams in Monaghan who obsess about facing Beggin. Like, Scotsman are a really good club team, and they obsess about what they're going to do to stop Beggin. And they're like, okay, we'll push up. But what's the point in pushing up? He's going to kick it 60 yards. So I do think Rory Beggin is the best. There
was a kick out that nearly went wide last year in the game against Kerry, which was like, what?
I think he's the best keeper.
Straight to Conor McManus and straight over the bar.
Cluxton set the standard, and I think Beggin has raised it a little bit more.
I mean, if we are talking in the All-Star context, obviously, as we have our All-Star jury member occasionally remind us that, like, how much does that even factor into what the selection will be? Like, you've come up with a lot of, I think, worthy categories as to why a goalkeeper might fit that bill. It's to assume that any of those categories are actually at play when the meeting takes place.
He just changed the whole thing here. Like.
Yes.
It's not All-Star.
This is a crystal ball for the 2019 championship. Who do I think the best goalkeeper will be in the 2019 championship? I think it's going to be Rory Beggin.
I think it's going to be Cluxton. I think that you've got to take a position on the whole year, right? My position is that I think, and I'm going to answer this question, will the Dubs be stopped? Like,
but don't reveal any of that, Jeff. Don't reveal any of that. Hang on. I know we're all going to have to walk that tightrope until we get towards the end.
Don't blow on the dance this morning, Joe.
Okay. That guy. I think that, for no reason, that at the end of the year, we will go, that is an amazing career that Stephen Cluxton has put together. Tom Brady style, Ruby Walsh style, a Tiger Woods style career, a game changer.
But Tom Brady's not the best quarterback in the NFL right now.
No, but...
Like, that's the point. Right now...
Yeah, but come on.
Tiger Woods.
Dublin win 5 in a row. Dublin win 5 in a row. They can't give.
I'm not saying that being the GOAT is necessarily the same as being the best goalkeeper right now. The thing is, I actually kind of agree with you that I think there's a strong argument to be made that Stephen Cluxton is still currently the best goalkeeper.
There's an argument, definitely. Like, I think what you're...
I'm not making that argument. That's all I'm doing.
If you believe that Dublin are going to win 5 in a row, they are not going to do it without Stephen Cluxton.
Don't give away now the...
I think if you do
believe it. So if you believe Dublin are going to do 5 in a row, you've got to pick Cluxton as your...
I think we're way over the minute here, but to wrap this up, I think that this is a swan song. Clearly, he'll be 38 for the next year's championship. I think that if we bring it back to the All-Star, I think there's an element of X factor in that conversation that doesn't come into some of those categories that you talked about. That might just be a bit of the romance of football championship, and the bowing out of Stephen Cluxton with an All-Star to cap it off is where I'm going.
Talk to Dave McIntyre. There's no romance in the All-Star selections.
Here's where everybody went for their best goalkeeper. Just to recap that category before we move on. So I'm going with Cluxton, as is Ger, and the two lads going for Rory Beggin. And who knows who's proved right or wrong at the end of the year, because we can all just sit here and rehave the argument if it's not connected to the All-Stars. Let's just decide it's connected to the All-Stars now.
Okay, let's go
square that off.
That's the only one. That's the only individual thing.
Football.
Tommy, category 2, Leinster, easier or harder for Dublin?
Me.
Yeah, easier or harder for Dublin this year?
I kind of bailed and said it's going to be the same as always.
Come on, give us real stuff here.
It doesn't say easier or harder or same. It says easier or harder.
Like, it's almost impossible for it to be the same.
It is, it's like who came the closest to Dublin in the last couple of years? Carlo kept them close enough for about 50 minutes.
Can I just point out that Tommy is refusing to say that it's going to be harder because he's worried that it'll get back to McEntee and that will end his final lingering tiny threadbare chances of ever representing me.
Well, then he should be saying it's easier.
The one person I'm not worried about here is Andy McEntee.
I don't believe you. The lady does protect too much.
No, Meath obviously had a fantastic league, brilliant, but any Meath fan looking at that now can't go, we're going to win a Leinster, we're going to challenge Dublin. Meath haven't been there in 5 years. They're closer, but it's not going to make any more difference.
That makes it harder. Isn't
the evidence of everything about Dublin that everything is going to be harder for them this year?
Yes, exactly. And also, by definition, okay, not as close to by definition, but you look at the teams, of course it's going to be harder this year. The smallest winning margin in Leinster last year was 18 points for Dublin. Come on, it's not that hard a question. And these were supposed to be easy questions to ease ourselves in.
Yes.
It is categorically a harder. They didn't play Kildare, they didn't play Meath last year. They will play Meath in the Leinster final this year, I think. And surely, Tommy, Andy McEntee will get them to 17 points.
Finally, right. Leinster's going to be really interesting apart from Dublin. It actually is going to be interesting. But I don't even know if Meath, I wouldn't even predict Meath to get to a Leinster final yet.
Why? What side of the draw then?
Oh, isn't it?
You have
bottom side.
The winners of Louth Wexford. Dublin faced the winners of Louth Wexford in the quarter final. Meath are on the opposite side, so they're going to be the final. Meath are on the opposite side.
Well, Meath don't have are opposite the side with that has Kildare and Dublin.
Meath and Westmeath in the semi-finals.
The cheeky yerring here from Tommy Rooney is absolutely sickening.
It's about showing up in a Leinster final.
What are you going for?
Yeah, much easier.
Easier.
Much harder. Sorry,
harder. Yeah.
There'll be at least
Meath coming on a bit.
So hang on, they'll beat Louth by 18 points. Who else? Well, here's the thing. They play
Louth Wexford
by 18 points because they'll just be sitting back.
Louth Wexford in the quarters, and then probably Kildare in the semis.
Depends where the quarters are. They're in Croker.
They play Louth, Kildare, and Meath.
Or Westmeath.
Well, lads go there, Meath.
Possibly.
Maybe Westmeath.
Look, Meath obviously come on in the league. Kildare have Super 8s behind them. I mean,
if Daniel Flynn plays, I would give them.
Westmeath won the Burn Cup this year, no?
Westmeath are going for the only team in the hunt for the quadruple.
They are.
So, you know.
do you remember Adrian's quadruple of a Mount Rushmore from Westmeath?
So I'm going.
I'm going for
O'Shea and John Aldridge.
Why not? I'm going for Harder as well on Owen's basis of no, he didn't make it. I think Niall Horan might have been in there.
Oh, Niall Horan's fair enough.
Robbie Henshaw, yeah.
Robbie Henshaw was in. It was a Mount Rushmore of about 6 or 7 people, to be fair. So, whatever you're having yourself, I'm going for Harder as well. Really, on Owen's basis that it couldn't be
same as always.
Same as always. Same as always.
Bullshit answer.
And he got to write that up. It should have been disqualified.
Right, we're into the serious stuff now. Ger, Footballer of the Year. What are you having?
Footballer of the Year.
Without giving away your selection for questions.
So I've gone for 2. My outsider is Cormac Costello, and my favourite is Fenton.
Costello gets in the team, gets a run of games.
Costello's like the focal point of an attack that needs a bit of a focal point, that needs that bit of aggression and bite that he brings to the game that they're missing at the moment.
Is he even going to start?
I mean, that's why he's an outside bet.
You're not going to go for James McCarthy? Put your money down on James McCarthy again?
I thought about James McCarthy.
Yeah, so did I.
Tommy, who have you gone for?
Gone for Aidan O'Shea.
So have I. Ah, right.
I think that's a bad sign for Aidan O'Shea.
I mean, I think it's very suggestive of what we're coming to a bit later in this.
No. I don't think they necessarily need to win the All-Ireland.
They do. They do this year.
Like 2 Mayo men have won All-Star Player of the Years this decade. And Aidan O'Shea is more famous than them in a vote that is rewarded by the players. And I think he's liked by his players.
He's liked by players, but Aidan O'Shea is probably judged a bit harsher than others. But I just think that in that league campaign, he just showed such good form. I think
he was great.
It was James McCarthy-esque last year, and it's like, if you're going to pick somebody on that basis, I'd be going for Aidan O'Shea.
Momentum behind them, holding his position in midfield.
Yeah.
A manager that he loves.
Yeah, James Horan is the Aidan whisperer.
You're not mentioning any Kerry players in this conversation.
For Footballer of the Year?
Yeah.
Won't happen.
Yeah, they're all too young.
They're way too young. We'll get the young Footballer of the Year in a moment.
Right, so we have 3 Aidan O'Sheas and 1 hedging his bets.
Yeah, so Costello/Fenton.
You went for Costello, by the way, according to our graphic.
Mayo are going to play Dublin in the Super 8.
That's it. That's the only one you get.
Mayo could play Dublin in the Super 8. So, O'Shea's going to have, after the New York game, he's going to have Roscommon, potentially Galway, potentially Roscommon, potentially Galway, and then more than likely Dublin in Super 8 if it goes that way.
And then potentially say he's in the shop window for a lot longer.
You're in the shop window for longer. There's bigger games
until the Super 8.
The Galway game will be on TV.
No mention for any of the shortlisted players for last year, or
here's the thing,
Rory O'Carroll.
Here's the thing. Well, I thought briefly about Rory O'Carroll. Here's the thing, but none of the players will see games. They will only see clips on
GAA now.
Exactly, and it's the stupidest poll that we've ever had.
Or, Player of the Month awards, Man of the Match awards. Like Aidan O'Shea is cleaning Man of the Match awards up at the moment. That really helps, you're right. And he's interviewed on the Sunday game after the 4-minute highlights package every week.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to have a huge impact. Aidan O'Shea is just the biggest magnet for momentum. If he's playing badly, people are saying he's terrible. If he's playing half well, people will say he's amazing. I think he's in runner form now where he's playing well. He's going to actually be playing amazing this year, and people are going to be losing their minds about it. And I think he's a perfect candidate for Footballer of the Year.
Reset your timer there, Tommy. We're going to move on to the Young Player of the Year. I'm going to jump in here with Sean O'Shea, just to make you feel a bit more at home with things. I think obviously he's had a brilliant league. He was vastly underestimated by some quarters in Kerry obviously last year. Probably learns a little bit from the league final, and I think that he's a good shout for Young Player of the Year.
I agree. I think Clifford is favoured. I think he's about even price favourite at the moment. But Sean O'Shea, I agree. I think he's actually going to do it. And I think the reason why is what he does outside of the frees. Obviously, you can't overstate just how much composure it takes to actually knock over those frees, especially when it comes to big games. But I think Ger's a big advocate for Sean O'Shea at midfield. Now, personally, I don't see it myself, but there is a bit of clamour around that, getting Sean O'Shea more involved in the middle of the park. He's on more ball. He's in the game a little bit more. David Clifford's going to be watching a little bit more this year. I think it's definitely a 2-horse race. I think Sean O'Shea just about edges it.
Come for Sean O'Shea too, lads.
Right.
The consensus is there. I just think, free taking wise, he's not going to miss anything inside the 45. He might have missed 2 or 3 in the league, but he's such a slick footballer. He makes them tick. He's involved in their defensive play as well. Owen has said it as well as anyone. He's involved in so much. Clifford will have massive moments.
Clifford, come on.
But I think Sean O'Shea is going to be consistently the best player.
The story of the summer. Sean O'Shea is a great footballer, and it's great that they have him, but this is Xavi to Messi. Xavi, great footballer, top 5 absolutely, but Messi's Messi. Clifford is messy.
Yeah.
Clifford is the one that every child in the country is going to be in the back garden dribbling the ball around people, dummy soloing, kicking with both feet and going, yeah, Clifford's gone.
But he's got, the thing with the reason that I went against him was that he's got a bit of his lat hands as well. He's got the capacity to lose the head a bit, or he's got the capacity to be a bit distracted in a way that I don't know very much about Sean O'Shea, but he doesn't strike me.
You're not watching enough shot clock.
You know what? That's what makes you stand out sometimes too.
Yeah.
A little bit of his Latin.
But also, we know that he's getting that under control because Kieran Donaghy had a little quiet word by text.
Yeah,
Good
record
happens.
for back-to-back young footballers as well. Both the O'Connors won them in back-to-back years, so Clifford could do the third one this decade.
We're seeing a Kerry man anyway.
Derek Hanavan is another guy that...
But
he's not playing senior football.
He's not playing
he's in his 20s, yeah.
Right, we'll go for him for 2020. Recap on the Young Footballer of the Year. Shouts, pretty much all Sean O'Shea, and then a bit of a David Clifford from Ger there as well. He seems to be going against the general run of things here, surprisingly. Will Dermot Connolly play this year?
No. It would have happened by now.
No. Yes, no.
Yes, for Vincent. No, I'm joking. Yes, I think he will.
I have
come back. I'm a dreamer. He's coming back.
I have a no, unfortunately.
No, as well, is what I'm going.
Too late, isn't it?
Bring him back.
I'll bring him back.
We need him back. Come on.
Absolutely. Like Rory O'Carroll just got back last week. What are you talking about? It's absolutely not too late.
I think it's a bit of a different situation. I think, well, to be honest with you, I think the Rory O'Carroll come back is actually quite late as well. I think he needed a bit of league football. He came back later than Dermot Connolly came back.
No,
like as in literally to the country.
Dublin think of the Leinster Championship as league football the way you think of league football in Kerry. They're like, oh yeah,
exactly.
I mean, come on.
If you're saying Rory O'Carroll came back late,
loud in Croke Park.
Different case when you're bringing a player back in.
If you're saying Rory O'Carroll came back late, the whole Dubs came back late.
It is a different story. They will want to get that story out of the way.
Bring back Dermot Connolly.
They don't want this dragging on until later in the year. It needs to happen.
There's media today where we're going to get an answer.
Or
24 hours.
We're talking about Dermot Connolly instead of talking about the elephant in the room, which is the pressure needs to get to Dublin.
Exactly.
Whereas Jim Gavin is like, just keep talking about Dermot Connolly there.
Jim Gavin can bring Dermot Connolly back and he can put number 24 on his back, and Jim Connolly will fight for his place, and if he doesn't win it back, he doesn't win it back. I actually don't think he's like a negative impact. He would be a negative impact in the squad, even as a squad player. I actually think he'd be a distraction for the rest of the world.
Let's have a recap on where we're all going. And Dermot Connolly, no across the board. And Tommy continues with his bullshit answers here.
No, I'm saying yes. Actually, yes. Actually, yes. I'm actually saying yes. I was only joking.
Right, best defence. Jared, do you want to jump in on this one?
My best defence is Dublin. I mean, I think this is pretty straightforward.
100%.
Rory O'Carroll comes back in, shores everything up. They suddenly have options.
Strength and depth.
Their one weakness is shored up.
It's a domino effect of this. Like if Rory O'Carroll comes back to full form, fully fit, they've got 3 lockdown. If Keane O'Sullivan's fully fit, they've got 6 lockdown. That means Johnny Cooper goes back to being a corner back again, and that is a huge, huge thing for Dublin.
Also means James McCarthy can go to midfield.
So who misses out there? Was Philly, Cooper, Merchant started the 2018
Philly. So we were talking, Paddy Christie was on the show during the week. We were talking about the strength of Rory O'Carroll and what he brings, because obviously he's his natural successor. And he was saying, well, look, Philly won't be in every minute of every game player for you, but situationally, when Aidan O'Shea is moved into full forward, come on down, Philly, do your stuff.
That semi-final in 2016, 2015, Philly scored 1-2 on him, pushing them back the pitch.
It's not bad.
Are we missing anything here? Are we going to look back at the end of this year and go, Jesus, why were we not talking about
it? Mayo potentially.
In the league, Mayo potentially. In the league, right, on the Gaelic football show, one week we were talking about how brilliant Kerry swarm tackling were, and the following week we were discussing Aidan O'Rourke's column, which Kerry people were not happy about.
Well, nobody was saying that Kerry were the best defence in the country.
We were talking about how good they were. I was as well. How good their swarm tackling was. How improved they had been like over the league campaign. I don't know. For me, it's Dublin. I think they've shored up their one weakness.
Yeah, I think we're probably all going on that. We'll just take a quick sweep on that. There we are. Let's see who says at the end of the chat whether Dublin are going to get it done this year or not. That's the 29 crystal ball for the best defence of the year. Most likely underachievers. I'm going to jump in with Monaghan on this one. They on the basis that maybe they overachieved last year, but obviously doing as well as they did, obviously in terms of the Super 8s, lost in All-Ireland semi-final by a point. It's hard to see them repeat that, and at that basis I'm saying.
So what so again, I'm asking the quizmaster for some definitions here. How do you define underachieving?
It's very loose, Ger, is the thing. What I've defined it as the teams who we should be expecting to do something that they won't.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's it. It's not based on last year, because I don't think reaching the Super 8s and getting knocked out in the Super 8s is an underachievement for Monaghan, to be honest with you. But I agree with you. I think there is a danger, and we're all going to look a little bit foolish here. The chances are when you try to pick an underachiever, because it's a tough one to pick. But I think there is a slight possibility that Monaghan might stumble before they get to the Super 8s. They've got to go to Breffni Park in the first round, their first match of Ulster. They almost got relegated in the league. Granted, I think Niall Kearns coming back playing football is a massive thing for Monaghan, and he's going to be huge for them. Like, to be honest with you, when I'm actually previewing the match between Cavan and Monaghan, I would expect them to win, but I think it's a banana skin. Then Armagh after that. They go into the qualifiers early when you get knocked out that early in Ulster if it happens, and you just don't know what's going to happen in there. I just think, as I say,
league and may not make the Super 8s is what you're saying, is it?
I think there's a chance they don't make it.
Well, that's definitely underachieving.
Oh, it would be a huge underachievement, yeah.
Before I reveal my underachiever, I would like to say that I would like to change my overachiever. I'm not going to change it. I'm not going to change it.
You can't keep giving caveats.
Can I change my overachiever?
We'll come to that in a minute.
Okay, my underachiever is Monaghan. I think that when you beat Dublin in the league, you're just nearly setting yourself up to fail.
No.
I think you are. But I'm going to say that can I change my overachiever? No?
We'll come to that in a minute. What have we got?
Tyrone.
Right?
Tyrone.
Well, this is surprising.
Well, because they've got last year they reached an All-Ireland final. This year they've revolutionised their style of play. Well, let's be having you, lads. Come on. All this fancy talk in March, February, April, and we've progressed from not laying a glove on Dublin in an All-Ireland semi-final to not laying a glove on them in the final. No.
Mickey Hart says that they have changed their style of play, but that, I mean, we still
to negotiate an Ulster Championship.
Surprised if you see Tyrone 2018 in the Championship is kind of what Mickey Hart is saying.
It's such a pity that Tyrone didn't change their style last year and have something ready in the can. I do honestly still think that Monaghan, though, I do agree with you that their Ulster is so tricky, and last year they came so close to making it into the All-Ireland final that it's easy to say Monaghan as an underachiever.
But it is, and we're going to look stupid here, like we probably are, but Monaghan just seems like
there's no way we're going to look stupid. This is absolutely outrageous.
Like last year they had a Jack McCarron, Conor McManus, now they've added Stephen O'Hanlon as well.
Yeah.
That's why I'm picking Monaghan as my overachiever.
Monaghan, and swimming against the tide is Ger with his Tyrone prediction. So, Tommy, come on. Whatever's on the graphic, we said this to Paul Howard last week, whatever's on the graphic, you got to stick with it.
I got to stick with it?
Yeah.
Okay,
you can give a caveat, but you have to stick with that.
Most likely overachievers this year, I think, because they've got a lot of young lads, and that nobody in the county believes that they can actually win the All-Ireland this year. I think they carry them out, and they're going to be the most overachievers.
Ooh, the teams that we're not expecting.
If they won an All-Ireland, there would be an overachiever.
The teams we're not expecting anything from who actually have a chance.
No.
Overachievement. I think Kerry winning an All-Ireland this year would be an overachievement. I think that they can do it.
Yeah, he's right. It would be an overachievement.
Yeah. I was going to change it,
but you're saying it would clearly would be an overachievement. But you're saying that that's what is going to happen.
No, I think that the most likely overachievement would be Kerry.
Meath for me.
Right.
To be fair, is making the Super 8s an overachievement for Meath? Maybe not. If we were to go to
it probably is. It is.
Okay, then hear me out. Just
got promoted. The team that gets promoted from Division 2 should automatically consider themselves one of the top 8 teams in the country. Therefore, they must be considered.
I was worried this might happen. So I've come up with a backup. Cork.
What?
Cork as an overachiever. Basically,
what would they even need to do to overachieve?
There is that, but also their Munster semi-final.
Keep it kicked out.
Their Munster semi-final is against Tipperary. Like, Tipperary had just as bad a league as Cork did. Like, Tipperary have gone back in the last couple of years, let's face that.
But at least Cork can point to not having had their best players playing for them.
Well, I mean, like, you look at Cork last year, they reached the Munster final. They, I think, will reach the Munster final again this year. That way, when once they get hockeyed by Kerry in a Munster final, they're only one game away from the Super 8s. If Cork make the Super 8s, for me, that is an overachievement.
I could go with that.
And I can see that happening.
There's no easy games against Cork.
Sorry.
No easy games. Sorry.
Look, if Meath make the Super 8s, it's the absolute progression they need. But I do think it's an achievement to make Super 8s.
So Roscommon made the Super 8s last year and were no good when they got there, right?
Yeah.
If Cork were to get there and get hammered in 3 games, that's not an overachievement. That's like laying there.
Well, there's too many factors. Because you could end up
not sure about that.
If you're Cork or Meath and you get beaten by every other team who are...
Come on, you progress. I think you progress.
Who are you going for?
Most likely overachievers I have is Donegal.
Why?
This is not the first time
we've mentioned an All-Ireland semi-final.
Paddy McWherty.
Well, why are they going to overachieve?
But what is the...
Just remember they're missing McNeilish.
Define overachieve.
But like overachieving for Donegal is a semi-final.
Yes, it's coming out of their group.
Fair enough.
It's like not being destroyed by the vagaries of a crap rule where they have to play Dublin and Croker.
I'm backing up the Meath shout and I'm sticking by it. Obviously a brilliant league, copped an awful draw in the back door last year, ran Tyrone to a point in extra time, had some big wins in the league, including some of the teams we've just mentioned, and I think that they have a shout to get in the Super 8s. I will consider that to be an overachievement. Obviously it backs up my selection, so I'm entitled to do that. And here's a recap of what we're all thinking about the overachievers. I get to do it, it's fine. Meath and Kerry for Tommy, and a caveat at Donegal from Ger, who's come back to Donegal a few times in this one.
That's the first time I mentioned them.
No, you mentioned them a bit earlier. You said sleepers, you were talking about them a bit earlier. Right, best midfield, Owen, what are you thinking?
Best midfield.
This is the team that we think will have the best midfield.
Yeah, Dublin. For me, the top two midfields in the country are Fenton and McCarthy, and Fenton and Michael Darragh Macaulay, and the third best midfield in the country is potentially Matthew Moran and Aidan O'Shea. It could be a bit of a curveball there, but for me, the top two midfields in the country are any combination of those for Dublin.
Thanks for ruining my top two midfielders in the country. My top two midfielders in the country are the combination of O'Shea and Ruan. I think there's the Brafey link. I think Ruan was to find the league. I think he had so much to him. He's so hard working. He really complements O'Shea's game. I think he can add a point. Mayo were probably lacking that with their midfielders in the last couple of years. They were probably lacking somebody who could add maybe 2 points a game the way Kieran Whelan used to do it. I think Ruan can do that. He can pop up with goals up the field the way that Paddy Keenan used to do it. For me, they are the best two midfielders. I think that Kerry's middle third is the best middle third, but best two midfielders are Ruan and O'Shea.
And they have been named to face New York at the weekend as well. So no Cillian O'Connor in that game, which is of relevance for one of the other competitions that we're going to talk about in a minute.
Too late, Ger.
Dubs.
It's too late. He's in the Dubs, best midfielder.
Yeah.
I'm going with...
Because Howard's there as well, right? Like, you didn't even think of that.
Yeah, Fenton and Howard is the other one.
Yeah.
That's the 2018 All-Star midfield.
Well, Howard's
you just totally discounted.
Howard's 12.
That's a very good point.
But he plays,
that's a very good point.
You know, he's catching kickouts.
That's what you were going to say was your third selection.
I'm basing it on 8 and 9.
What about Kerry's midfield? They've got huge men. Mobile men.
They got cleaned out twice by Mayo in the leagues.
Yeah.
But to be fair, they were missing more.
They're missing the main man in there.
Is he going to play?
He will.
Best midfield category. The nominees, 2 Mayos, 2 Dublins. Right, best team in Ulster, Ger, I'm coming to you on this one. It's clearly Tyrone.
Best team in Ulster. Again, so what is the question?
What is the best? Not necessarily Ulster champions.
Well, that's okay.
Yeah,
that's good. Okay, so the best team in Ulster.
It's at the end of the championship. So
I'm saying Tyrone are going to win the Ulster title, but that Donegal will be the team who goes deepest and has cuts the most damage against the.
So you're not buying the Tyrone hype. You're not buying the.
No. I've just borne witness since 2011 to the style of play that they've had for the last 6-7 seasons, and it's been the same, and it's not used the available resources to them. Now there's a small sample size of them doing really good stuff, and if they continue to do that, then this is wrong, clearly, because they'll blossom and they could actually run Dublin quite close. But fool me once, shame on me. Mm-hmm. You.
The McNeilish thing hasn't. You're remembering McNeilish is not allowed.
I ain't going to get no shame this time.
Well, I picked Donegal. I think that McNeilish is a massive blow, but they brought through so many young lads last year, and they just threw them in at the deep end. Declan Bonner put them all out there. They look really good in the league. Burned out around the championship time. I think they've grown up a lot. McBrearty is coming back. I can't remember how bad Oisin Gallen's injury is. He's not out for a summer, is he? No, I don't think so. Not sure. But he was bloody brilliant in the last couple of games in the league. 4 points against Kildare, 4 or 5 points against Meath from play. He's class. Michael Murphy's in serious form. I think that Donegal are going to win the Ulster Championship. Can I just give a quick shout that I think Armagh are going to be the most interesting team in Ulster this year. I think that Kieran McGeeney is going to get a win in Ulster finally as Armagh.
I'm going to make a prediction that in one of these categories you're just going to give one answer and stick by it without a category.
Keep an eye out for Armagh.
I'm on Donegal. I actually liked Jerry's shout earlier on of Tyrone being biggest underachievers. Like, I was very tempted to just stick Tyrone down as best team in Ulster given their league form, and given Donegal's league form, which was patchy in parts, you'd be tempted to leave them off that as well. But I think the way Donegal finished the league, Michael Murphy's form, it's a very simple thing to actually look at. How are the best players on a team going? And hopefully we'll see a fully fit Paddy McBrearty if they make the Super 8s this year. And I think they've got a chance of being the best team in Ulster for sure.
My shout is Tyrone, but it's difficult to stack it up because the benchmark is so high for them that anything beneath an All-Ireland final almost is seen as a bit of a...
Well, being competitive in an All-Ireland final.
Yeah, but I'm sticking by it anyway. It's on the graphic, so going with Tyrone. It's 3 shouts for...
2-2.
You went for Tyrone as well?
It says Ger Tyrone there on the graphic.
Did you actually go for Tyrone?
That's well, it said Tyrone are going to win the Ulster final. The Ulster
What's your answer?
My answer is Donegal, I think, because we weren't sure about what the...
Well, I wasn't sure what your answer was when I was filling out the graphic.
Right.
There you go.
Top scorer, Owen, what are you having?
Dean Rock.
Sean O'Shea.
It's Conor McManus.
McManus was top scorer last year.
Who have we got?
I've got Killian O'Connor, but he's not playing against New York, so he's going to score. If you
got to stick by it. It's on the graphic.
If he was playing, it says Killian O'Connor if he plays New York, but the team broke yesterday, and so he's not playing.
But Killian O'Connor's still going to get 8 games.
But he would have scored 3-7 in that game, and it was game over for that bet.
Top scorer is a boring conversation.
I'm going with Dean Rock as well. There's none of those Kerry lads that are going to...
I said Sean O'Shea.
Sean O'Shea is a good shout, yeah.
But for you...
But Sean O'Shea on frees. Whoever pick a team, pick their free taker, and that's
Sean
your top
O'Shea
scorer.
is kicking 30. He's kicking 30 points in the Munster Championship.
Okay, so they could score 320 against Clare, couldn't they?
They scored a lot last year. What was it, 31 points or something?
Here's our top scorer recap. That's the best team in Ulster that we're going back to there. And the top scorer, we'll come to in a few minutes. We'll move on to the best manager. I'm going with James Horan here. He's already in the hot seat. Obviously had an amazing... Again, look, what the hell are the...
We're biased because we worked with him.
And also, how do we define this?
How do you define it?
Well, I define it as in, if Jim Gavin if Dublin win, there is no debate. It's Jim Gavin that wins it. And if anybody beats Dublin, it's that manager.
Fair enough.
It's as simple as that, as far as I'm concerned.
For me, I look at the best manager in the country through a different prism. I look at it through the Tony Pulis prism. What can you do with a team that should be battling relegation and is actually achieving mid-table relevance? In this case, what team is going to make the Super 8s that might not? Andy McEntee is going to be the best manager this year, in my view.
The difficulty with that is you'll have forgotten about it. But
Tommy actually paid him a $5 to say that. That was really Tommy's vote because he was trying to brown nose so he can get picked.
You can actually see the McEntee from your sleeping face.
What have you got?
I just ran
caveats, Tommy. What have you got?
James Horan, I think he's learned what he needed to learn. And I think that
they're going to do it. They're going to stop the 5 in a row.
I think the league campaign was just so impressive. And, he held trials in October and he looked at who he had to look at. He brought in so many players that have actually made an impact this year. James Horan.
There'll be bonfires lit by Melisandre the whole way from Croke Park to the Kong. That's what'll happen. And
Lewisburg.
The Meath Hill hillbillies will be yahooing for weeks.
It'll be so dark. It'll all be so dark you won't be able to see it. It'll be grand. Nobody else will see it. What are you going for?
I go for James Horan.
Are you?
We're biased. Because he worked with us. So it's not a fair competition.
Our answers better all be that when we get to the end. There better be some consistency here. Best manager votes 3 for James Horan and 1 shout from Owen.
Adrian.
Andy McEntee.
Fantastic.
Why did I go for Peter Keane? That is an amazing question. It's totally inconsistent with what I'm going for later on. That should have been effing James Horan was what I meant to put on that, so apologies there.
Have you not got the back of Peter Keane?
I had not. I absolutely 100%
it's shambles.
Not going for Peter Keane.
I demand a Stewart's inquiry.
I was not going for Peter Keane in any way, shape or form.
Have I missed?
But we won't know that.
No, you haven't. I'm sure I put that in the email, but that's what I actually meant to go for. It's in bold here, Owen. You might just sort of...
It is in bold.
Okay, what's the next one?
Best forward line.
Collectively, Kerry.
Yeah, Kerry, for me. Best collection of individuals. Most effective forward line might be a different thing because if you throw the likes of
Niles...
Niles...
what are the parameters then?
Well, no, I'm talking about the best collection of forwards.
It's hard to say with conviction, though.
Everything is hard to say with conviction when you're talking about Kerry compared to everybody else because there's a chance that Dublin and Mayo outpoint them in every single area. But Kerry just about edges for me, just given the personnel that they have. Between Clifford and Gainey, between Tommy Walsh and James Donoghue, the type of sleepers that they have. I think it kind of is a bit harsh to be calling them sleepers, to be honest. But Sean O'Shea then, Stephen O'Brien is quietly going about his business.
Hang on.
Kevin McCarthy.
Hang on. Tommy Walsh and Gainey, right? Mm-hmm. When was the last time Gainey was Gainey?
He showed glimpses last year. I'm not going to lie, his form is a worry. His form is a big worry, but I wouldn't be saying this if I thought Paul Gainey was finished, because he's not finished.
Well, he's a young man.
We will see Paul Gainey at his peak again, and I think we will see him at his peak again this summer. Now, James Donoghue has been off his peak for a little bit longer, and that is the bigger if here. And that was the if that I said at the start of the year, that if James Donoghue comes back fully fit, then Kerry can win the All-Ireland, or fully back to full form. Now, I don't think he will do that, but I still think that if he can get somewhere back to 70%, 75% of what he used to be, then that forward line is the best forward line in the country.
I'm not having it. I think there's too many question marks. I think that so what you're saying is that I need 3 players to reach their absolute peak again in
not absolute
Tommy
peak.
Walsh.
I said 75%.
Tommy Walsh, Paul Gainey, and James Donoghue all need to get back to something. So
Tommy Walsh has proved that he can be a very, very good something. That something is not 2008, 2009 Tommy Walsh. We got to remember.
I've changed my mind again.
Tommy, I'm going for Dublin. It's, the easiest answer, isn't it? I mean, anything else, you're making a case for sort of counter to Dublin.
You forget about
the quality players that are there. You're talking about Cormac Costello potentially coming in.
Like no one's mentioned Conor Callaghan once in this 40 minutes we've done.
I mean,
young footballer of the year.
I haven't been.
But he wasn't Conor Callaghan.
Young footballer of the year. We thought we could work that.
I think he is.
I think he is. Yeah.
His jersey analogy. He wasn't Conor Callaghan last year. So who knows what happens there? Maybe it's the third season syndrome, where he's suddenly back to himself again, and he's freed from the shackles of all the pressure of that individual expectation.
He was still pretty effective at various stages. Like there was moments of absolute genius, the tight turning circle, all that kind of stuff that he has. I'm going with the Dubs as well.
Okay.
Right, here's 2 Dubs shout. I'm actually sticking with what's on the graphic this time, and 2 shouts for Kerry. Most likely to stop the Dubs.
Mayo.
One answer, Mayo.
Yeah.
Kerry.
The Dubs themselves.
Jesus Christ.
Get in there, Jay.
Mayo.
And Mayo.
It's like we've spoken about this, I think, in our other answers, to be fair. If they just have something in every area of the park which you need to stop the Dubs. You can't just be a flash in the pan in a certain area.
I think they need Connolly too.
They need Connolly.
I want them to need Connolly.
Get him back.
I'm going to say Kerry, and the reason I changed my answer like 6 times, obviously, but I'm going to say Kerry because Mayo are going to face Dublin in the Super 8s.
Who did you go for manager of the year?
I'm for James Horn.
So how can you say James Horn?
Because I think Mayo are going to be Dublin in the Super 8s. And I think Kerry are going to win the All Ireland.
Oh, that's going to be some summer. Mm-hmm. That will be an eruption.
I am a dreamer.
Yeah, it's complicated.
I can't remember what I said at the end for the last
one. Hang on. Heartbreak from Mayo that they're going to get up to that level of expectation. They're going to beat the Dubs in the Super 8s, and then Kerry are going to steal the All-Ireland from them. Oh my God, what a summer.
Haven't we talked about back in the knockouts?
Oh, what a summer.
The heartbreak is what makes them.
The last day, I should say.
Classic Kerry. That's
that would be like
an ultimate category. Recap on the answers there. It's
30 for 30.
Oh, come on, Ger, give us one.
Oh,
sorry.
Why did you even allow this?
Themselves.
Jesus Christ. I mean, to be fair, it's funny. Tommy goes for Kerry as the one outlier. And I suppose then the final question is whether they're going to get it done or not. Will the Dubs be stopped?
No. Here's my take on this general...
Yada.
No, so we've been talking for the last 2 months, or last 5 months at this stage, since 29 kicked off. Who will be the Seamus Darby? Who will be the man that brings us all down? And I'll tell you what, this generation's Seamus Darby is Ryan McHugh. We've already had our 1982 moment. It was 2014. It was the moment that stopped the 7 in a row. There is no such thing as stopping in a 5 in a row. It's already been done. The 6 in a row I'm looking forward to previewing because I do believe it will be stopped. But forget stopping the 5 in a row. Ryan McHugh was the Seamus Darby of this decade.
Good shout.
Right, briefly, let's wrap this up. I'm saying they will be stopped. I've said James Horn is going to be the manager. I'm all in on Mayo. They're going to have the best midfield, they've got the best manager, and they're going to get it done this year.
I think I had yes then, and I read Adrian said yes as well, so I changed my answer to no. But I want to change it back to yes. I'm only joking. I don't know, I can't make my mind up. I can't make my mind up.
Their odds on across the board. Kerry second favourites, 10-1 in Tyrone.
It's going to be so difficult.
8-1 I think on Mayo. What are you having, Ger?
No. Not having it, not getting stopped.
No.
That's the final category in our collective individual crystal balls. Will the Dubs be stopped? I say yes, Tommy say yes. Tommy says yes, and the 2 lads say no. I've enjoyed staring into my crystal ball. Thanks for staring into your own crystal balls over the course of the last, what should have been 15 minutes. It's probably been a bit longer than that. Will we come back to this at some point down the track? Is that the general plan?
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, if there's any great predictions of sort of winning big things, we should definitely come back to it and commend those people.
We'll do a special in Coppers night of the All-Ireland.
Send us in your predictions. What do you think is going to happen?
That's the crystal ball for now. We'll little clip for you, and we're back after this.
A lot of people think, this is just about Semenya, and I think she's been really badly treated in some respects. But reportedly, there are 10 to 12 elite athletes internationally at the moment who have the same condition that she does. And they haven't been named, which is interesting. People in athletics, I would have heard who they are, and people in athletics would know who they are. But they haven't been pinpointed the way she has. So in some ways, I feel very sorry for her.
Why has she been pinpointed so much? Why is she very much the poster girl for this whole area?
Well, because in 2009, the IAAF, in clarifying something, they actually named her. If I remember correctly, it was at World Championships. championships, and that's what happened.
So
and so
she
was
didn't
immediately
put her hand up
identified.
and say, I haven't androgynism.
Androgynism, yeah. But they identified that she was the case that was being queried.
Thanks for that.
I think that's what happened.
I'm sure she appreciated that.
So that's why. And I mean, in South Africa, you know, she's their Katie Taylor. She is their hero. I mean, they just adore her. She is, you know, such a role model in South African sport. And so they argue it's sexist, it's racist. They argue it on a whole load of grounds. I don't think it's a racist argument personally, but I do think that the way she's been treated has not been very fair, and I'm really interested to see what's going to happen with this case.
Yeah, that was Cliona Foley and Cian Tracy on the Sunday newspaper review with Joe a couple of weeks back, talking about the Caster Semenya case, obviously, which had huge developments this week. We've a conversation with Ross Tucker upcoming very shortly. Lots of reaction to our crystal ball gazing just a little bit earlier on. Phil Egan, welcome to the studio.
Thanks, lads.
I've known of just a bit of a wardrobe change there in the last while, just to freshen things up.
How many did you do a show? 3? With
3 this show, yeah. So maybe we might get around to another one before we're done.
Pretty impressive.
Plenty of interactions on our predictions. Couple on YouTube. Galway will catch Mayo asleep again, says Truth Seeker. Donegal are the team who can upset a lot of people this summer. They'll be very dangerous. There's a few shouts for Donegal over the course of that conversation. John Daly from Galway will be Young Player of the Year, says Patrick Concannon. Jeff Hendrick has been in touch. Good morning to you, Jeff. Aidan O'Shea hasn't a notion. Jesus. So, I mean, he came up with a couple of categories, so who knows what that was about. And plenty of people picking their own 15 responses to this. So Digger went with, I can't even remember what the hell these questions were. Morgan, he went for the goalkeeper. Slightly harder, Dublin will have it in Leinster. Fenton, that was obviously Player of the Year. Conor Callahan for Young Player. 5 was yes. Will Diarmuid Connolly play this year? I mean, that could be an increasing likelihood. I mean, I think I'm going back. What did I say? I said no. I think I'm going back now. Oh no! I
things are set in concrete at this point.
No, I'm scratching out that, and I'm saying that he is going to play. Mayo, Digger says for best defence. Galway, most likely underachievers. Monaghan, overachievers. Mayo, what was that? Midfield, number 9. Throw the questions back up there again.
Midfield, yeah.
Best midfield. Best team in Ulster, he says Tyrone. Kieran McManus, top scorer. Kieran, he's written Kieran, but it is absolutely Conor McManus. James Horan, Dublin, Mayo, most likely stop Mayo, and will they be stopped? No way. Not many shouts for Dublin, Phil, over the course of that conversation.
That's fine. I mean, just nobody talking about Dublin, that's okay.
Well, he's literally said they won't be stopped. He's literally
that was the end bit, but most of the other questions, there wasn't much mention of Dublin apart from Brian Fenton and Conor Callahan.
Yeah.
And then the Diarmuid Connolly question. But if Diarmuid Connolly comes back,
I think I would think.
When would you bring him back?
I've had a bit of a change of heart.
When would you bring him back?
Soon, I would say.
Would you have him in the camp, but maybe hold him for the Super 8s?
No, I think you get him in, get that story out of the way, get it done ASAP. I'd expect maybe something, anything could happen.
It's a pity you couldn't do something like WWE where he kind of just runs onto the pitch. You know the way.
Yeah, that'd be class.
You know the way at the Royal Rumble where there's a number coming up and you don't know who it's going to be, but the excitement, the anticipation, and then they come in and it's...
Yeah, Lee Keegan running in on goal and he gets hit by a steel chair and it's Diarmuid Connolly.
Podrick Slack says, can we stop talking about the 5 in a row, lads? It'll never happen, from a proud Meath supporter.
I like that confidence. Yeah. I like that confidence a lot.
Phil, what have you got for us?
Well, we'll start with Arsenal and Chelsea. They're still very much on course to meet in the Europa League final, which is due to be held in Baku on the 29th of May. Arsenal came from a goal down to beat Valencia 3-1 at the Emirates in the first leg of their semi-final last night. 2 goals for Alexander Lacazette in the first half. Could have scored a hat-trick, but Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang volleyed home the 3rd goal in injury time to give them that 2-goal cushion. But despite the lead, Arsenal manager Unai Emery believes it's 50-50 heading into the 2nd leg in Spain next week.
It's good result home, the first leg, but the 2nd leg is going to be very difficult and maybe different. And I considered for 2 teams 50-50 for this round.
That's a lot of old shite.
No, I think it's not quite 50-50, but Arsenal, their games are just crazy. Honestly, you've no idea what's going to happen. I love watching them.
He's not saying, that's not what he's saying.
He's saying 50-50 because I think Valencia will win next week.
He's not saying we're a bit flaky, so that's why it's 50-50.
Well,
that's what you're saying.
By saying it's 50-50, he's suggesting that there's every chance they're going to get beaten by 2 goals.
That's a load of old shite.
Yeah.
Well, there is every chance they're going to get beaten by 2 goals.
I think they'll lose the leg. I don't know. They might get a goal. They have this habit. I thought they might be come unstuck against Napoli and they went over there and they got the job done. But Looks like it's going to be set up for a cracking second leg as well at Stamford Bridge. Chelsea drew 1-1 away to Eintracht Frankfurt, and Pedro found the net just before half-time. Eden Hazard was on the bench. They brought him on in the second half. Sarri said that he wants to keep him fresh for their push for Champions League qualification in the Premier League. So the second legs of those games are on Thursday. There's Premier League action tonight. Everton host Burnley at Goodison Park. It kicks off at 8 o'clock. Everton still have an outside chance of finishing in the top 7. Dundalk and Bohemians both have the chance to close the gap on leaders Shamrock Rovers to a single point tonight in the SSE Electricity League Premier Division. Champions Dundalk host Derry City. Cork City are the visitors to Dalymount to face Bows, and it's also a first game for Cork interim boss John Cotter. Elsewhere, St Pat's take on Waterford and Finn Harps play UCD. The game at Finn Park is 8 o'clock, the other 3, 7:45. The UEFA Under-17 Championship gets underway in Ireland today. The Republic of Ireland face Greece at Tallaght Stadium at 7 o'clock. Colin O'Brien, side member, reached the quarterfinals last year. That was the controversial penalty shootout when Jimmy Corcoran, the goalkeeper, was sent off during the shootout, and Ireland ended up losing to the Netherlands. And Colin O'Brien has talked about Troy Parrott, who was so impressive last year, obviously injured, but he hasn't played this year for the under-17s. So O'Brien actually said it's not that disruptive to preparations at all, the fact that he's not there. But Ireland kind of need to win this one because Belgium and the Czech Republic are still to come, but Belgium are the favourites. So only 2 go through. And Greece are handy enough. They finished second in their qualifying group stages behind Belgium and Spain as well. So Czech Republic and Belgium meet at midday at Talca Park. Group B, then you've got the Netherlands against Sweden. That's at the RSC. That's at 5. And probably the pick of the games today, I know Ireland are playing at 7 o'clock. England and France at the City Calling Stadium in Longford at 7 o'clock. So that should be a cracking game.
There's going to be some great nostalgia pieces done about those players in 10 years' time when they're playing Premier League. It all started in Longford for the Golden Boot of the Premier League or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, take the team sheets, keep an eye on them.
I mean,
hold on to them.
If it was within striking distance, I might have actually gone to a game like that. I mean, I know Ireland are playing obviously later on. Can you watch any of these on the telly box?
Yeah, the Ireland game is on RTE tonight. Right. Now, I was on looking at the UEFA website, and it said like the games will be streamed. Certain ones will be streamed, but it looked like Ireland was in one of the areas that is restricted. So I don't know. We'll have to see. I know BBC will be showing the England games as well. Maybe they'll do some of the Ireland games as well. Could be interactive.
So Ireland need to win that, is what you're saying?
They could do it winning. It's hard to know how they're going to perform because the fact that they're hosts, they've been playing friendly matches.
Yeah,
so they haven't actually qualified for this competition through a qualification campaign. So, but the signs are good anyway. Now, talking of championship, gets underway this weekend. 2 games, more than 3,000 miles apart. First up, you've got London and Galway and Ruislip, first meeting of the two since 2014. I was actually at that game. It was a May bank holiday. It was an absolute scorcher in Ruislip. Galway scored an early goal. Most of the crowd went into the bar to watch Cork and Waterford in the Munster Hurling Championship. They ran out of large bottles of cider by about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. There was uproar, and it was a serious experience. And even after the game, the Galway players came out and had a few drinks with all the supporters. And you can see kind of why it's such a big weekend for the likes of London and New York. Obviously, the fact that Mayo are going to New York this weekend, the league champions, James Horan is back. So they're going to be a big crowd at the Bronx for that game against New York at Gaelic Park. And Mayo manager James Horan says that the logistics team have been kept busy in the build-up to this one.
You'd be amazed at what, when you're trying to get a big group of people to a different country to play a game of football. Yeah, the flight and the hotels and the hydration and all that kind of thing. But hopefully we've done it before. We've played in England and played in New York in 2014. So just trying to get as much of that right as you can, or as much of it as you can control, and try and be as right as we can for 2:15.
2:15 local time, 7:15 our time.
Right. He got rattled. Wasn't it his first championship game in charge of Mayo, then they got beaten by London.
Yeah.
Isn't that right?
Yeah.
So it's, 20 odd point spread.
Yeah, it's not going to
out the gap, I'd say, is what's happening here.
But it would be an unbelievable weekend. Like, who doesn't want to go to New York and then throw in the game as well?
Seems like tickets are really hard got.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to be getting on to the likes of Kevin Kilban or David Brady.
I mean, you would think they would be good sources, but not from what I can gather.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've request from one of those individuals to see if we could get him sorted for tickets. So, I mean, I'm also operating on the assumption that he has about 37 tickets, but he's just given them to other people.
Yeah, big crowd heading over. Rory McIlroy's in a share of the lead with Joel Damon on 5 under after round 1 of the Wells Fargo Championship at Quail Hollow, a tournament McIlroy's won twice. Seamus Power is in decent form of late and he's well placed on 2 under. Padraig Harrington back on 4 over. The champion hurdle is today's feature race at the Punchestown Festival. The 2 mile contest goes to post at 5:30. More action at the semi-finals in the World Snooker Championship. First up at 10 o'clock this morning, John Higgins, the 4-time winner, will resume 5-3 down to David Gilbert. 4-all between Gary Wilson and Judd Trump. They resume at 2:30. And the Ireland cricketers start their summer with a one-day international against England, who are the number 1 team in ODIs. And Ireland's last win at their home ground was against Scotland in 2014. I suppose the other thing to throw in is that England obviously captained by an Irishman who was asked about this game. He said, "We won't take Ireland lightly." Jesus. 10:45 start in Malahide. I've been looking at the weather. Could be a few showers.
Right.
Barmen could be busy in Malahide.
Premier League Live on Sunday on Today FM.
Saturday.
You think I might know this?
Yeah, we've got West Ham and Southampton. Kenny Cunningham, part of the commentary. A former Millwall player being sent to a West Ham game.
I would think that our audiences just can't get enough of Kenny Cunningham this week. I mean, it's for the best because I think that'll be about the 6th time he's
Well, you've got Kenny Cunningham and obviously Shane Long is still on fire.
Yeah.
So you throw that into the mix.
Yeah.
You've got yourself a cracking game.
On fire-ish with a little bit of
4 goals in 5 games, no?
No, yeah, but I mean...
That's fire.
The sitter is what I'm talking about. It's last weekend.
Get yourself into the position to put those away.
Very good. That's almost it from us for today. Owen, I've enjoyed your return, I have to say. Not a huge amount of ribbing about your 150,000.
There hasn't been too much ribbing in general all week. I've actually been kind of disappointed.
Yeah.
Actually, really disappointed.
Yeah.
I think everybody in general can say you did a pretty bad job of ribbing me over it.
That's quite disappointing. What's the big plans for the weekend? We got to touch on that at some point.
Well, we're going to touch on it now, aren't we?
That's exactly what we're doing.
Just going to go home, I think. I've been away for too long.
Right.
Need to see the folks.
The hangover is still there, sort of thing. Is that the?
Yeah.
What's the reaction been like at home to your newfound fame?
Not too bad, I can gather. I'll let you know next week.
That's a vague reference to the fact that your folks have obviously not seen it yet.
No, they have.
All right.
Yeah.
And have you spoken to them?
Yeah.
And
it's gone down okay, I
think. Son, we're so proud of you.
Yeah, I see. That's exactly it. If your son did that, you'd probably be like a little bit ashamed, I think. So
that's our Uber right there.
That's not even my voice, but thank you very much.
No, there's absolutely nothing to be ashamed about.
Okay.
Nothing.
Okay.
You actually carried yourself, for a man who had drunk about 25 pints, you actually carried yourself off superbly, I would say.
Well, thank you very much.
So well done, Owen. We're proud of you. Whatever your parents think, we are absolutely
I get a gold star at the end of this working week.
Thanks, lads. Thanks a million for that. Busy Off the Ball and Premier League Live over the weekend, as Phil's been mentioning there on Today FM on Saturday, and then also over on News Talk, the Derek McGrath interview with Nathan, and all of your football on the penultimate weekend, obviously the Premier League as well. That's Off the Ball from 1 o'clock on News Talk tomorrow. Tonight, Brian O'Driscoll's in studio. We'll be talking to Neil Tracy about the weekend of quarterfinals. I can't do that without doing this in the Pro 14 this weekend, and I'm sure plenty more as well. Frednet Racing as well, and the crappy quiz coming your way. And then on Sunday, the Sunday newspaper review and live football. Brian Kerr and Stephen Doyle are on duty for Huddersfield against Manchester United. We've got a really interesting discussion, though, to leave you with on this Friday morning. Ross Tucker joined us just before we came on air. He was live on the line from South Africa this morning to chat about the very latest in the Caster Semenya case. All right, last year the IAAF brought in a new regulation for female athletes with difference of sexual development. Athletes with a certain level of testosterone would have to meet certain criteria, including the reduction of that testosterone. Middle distance runner Caster Semenya took exception to that IAAF ruling, and you'll have seen that this week that her case was before the Court of Arbitration for Sport. They rejected that complaint, saying that the rules were discriminatory but also necessary, reasonable and proportionate were the words that they used in direct response to the nub of the case against the ruling, which Caster Semenya said, along with being discriminatory, was unreasonable, unreliable and disproportionate. Sports scientist Ross Tucker, a regular voice and Off the Ball, testified at the CAS case on behalf of Caster Semenya and joins us now on the line. Good morning to you, Ross.
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Good. Thanks, William, for taking the call. The three-person panel saying that it achieves the IAAF aim of preserving the integrity of female athletics in the restricted events. In simple terms, what does the verdict mean?
It means that starting next Wednesday, any athlete who has one of the half a dozen conditions that are covered by the regulations. So these are conditions that what are called differences of sex development. So that's where a person doesn't develop normally through the sequence from genes to hormones to male or female. And so you end up getting what used to be called an intersex person, now it's called a DSD. Those individuals will have to take medicines or have surgery so that their testosterone level drops below 5. If they don't do that, then they will not be allowed to compete in the 400, the 800, and the 1500 meter events. They can still compete in 3,000, 5,000, or the 200 and any other event. But for those events, they will have to medicate in order to be legal, so to speak.
And having testified on Caster Semenya's behalf, what was your conclusion, or how does it differ, or what similarities are there with the CAS conclusion?
Well, I didn't think that the evidence was strong enough or trustworthy enough to back the regulation. So my perception of it is that these regulations were an evidence-based document. They have to be. For a sport to put into place regulation that has potential medical consequences for its participants, like this one does, that document has to be based on some degree of evidence. And the more risky the medical results or outcomes are, the more robust and the higher quality that evidence needs to be. And my read of that evidence is that it didn't come close to clearing the bar that I think it needed. It was really based on one or two studies plus a bunch of theories. Now, where this gets complex, and this is, I've said before, perhaps even to you guys, this is easily the most complex issue that sport has to deal with, perhaps ever. Where it gets complex is that there's good biological theory and concept for why you would want to do something like this, but there's no good evidence that you should do it in this group of people. If you're talking about men wanting to compete in women's sport, that's different. But how you deal with these DSDs wanting to compete in women's sport is much less clear. And I just don't think that the IAAF's evidence clarified it enough for me to say, you know what, this is worth the risk you're going to introduce.
So are you saying that the conclusion was not the right conclusion, or it was the right conclusion, came about in the wrong way?
No, I think it's the wrong conclusion at this time. I think if I was judge for a day or king for a day, I would have said, look, I understand what you're trying to do here, and I back the concept that you're trying to defend this issue of protecting women's sport as a category. But you can't do it like this. Your policy is internally contradictory. There's a tension even in the policy. You could have Caster Semenya run on a Friday in a 5,000 and it's fine. On a Saturday, she tries to run an 800 and she's not allowed. And on the Sunday, she runs a 200 and she is allowed. So how can the same human being 3 days apart be legal on 2 days and illegal one day? When your model is that testosterone gives men a performance advantage that is so large that it's unfair for a woman. She has that advantage every day of the week, but some days she's allowed and other days she's not. So to me, there are aspects of this policy that you just can't defend. So they could have said to the IAAF, go away and fix the policy, come back. They could have said, go away and fetch better evidence and then come back. But I don't think they should have approved the policy, especially not as unilaterally as they did. You know, when in their decision, they call it a living document, which effectively gives the IAAF permission to add and remove and to change it as they see fit with basically no oversight. So that's a massive win for the IAAF on what I believe to be very flimsy evidence. And I think that sets a very poor precedent for how you use science to guide policy and procedure.
Is it possible for the IAAF to present a case that doesn't include evidence that it's flimsy, Ross?
I think it was. I think that even the methods, the way that they went about the study have been improved to make it a little higher quality. I think a lot of people would have been won over by that a little bit more. There were one or two areas that I think it was possible to plug. And I don't want to, I'm coming down very harshly on their research. I understand that this is such a complex issue that doing the perfect study is impossible. The good research here is unethical, and the ethical research is just not that good. But this research was bad. When we asked for it, this was way back in April, May, we asked them to provide some of the data. Because this is normal in research, that you have to be transparent with your data. So a group of 3 of us requested their data and had a look at some of it. And there were literally errors in that data set. So we saw the times that they'd analysed in order to arrive at this conclusion that high testosterone was better than low testosterone. And there were phantom data points. So, for instance, at the World Championships in 2011, they would have a time that a female athlete ran of 2:01.62. It never happened. So is that made up? Was that a typo? Was that a mistake? Some data points were duplicated, others were omitted. And we had no idea how you could base a decision on data that was so untrustworthy. So it doesn't undermine the concept. And this notion that having high testosterone could give you a performance advantage, I totally agree with. I think that Semenya and these other athletes have an advantage. The problem is I don't know how big it is. I don't know how big it could be. And therefore I can't evaluate the advantage against the downside of introducing medical harm and unethical medical practice to these athletes.
Yeah, I see that like Seb Coe's had some stuff to say about it. Is it, like, on the basis that some of the stuff that's been presented just isn't right, you obviously like to see some transparency in this process. Has there been an opportunity, or will there be an opportunity to interrogate the IAAF over it?
I hope that there's an opportunity, first of all, to interrogate the CAS decision, because so far we've seen a 2-page press statement and a slightly longer summary. The previous time CAS made a judgment on an issue like this, they did publish the entire decision, 140-odd pages. There's a 165-page full decision in this one, and it would be useful to see that. But I don't know that it's going to change that much, because fundamentally what's happened here is that you've got an argument of concept on one hand and an argument of evidence on the other hand. Now, those two things should support one another. They don't, because there's that internal paradox where, according to the policy, testosterone only works here. It doesn't matter there and it doesn't matter here. But in this event, in these 4 events, testosterone is powerful. So you've got concept and evidence. And I think that the CAS has to have weighted the concept more than the lack of evidence. In other words, they've had to decide which of these two things means more. We think the concept, we're less concerned about the evidence, therefore go ahead.
Yeah, like, it's weird that they would publish a ruling that by its very nature, by their own admission, is discriminatory.
Yeah, and that was key in the Duty Chan decision, and it's obviously key here. The issue there being, and I'm no lawyer, so this is second-hand from me, the issue being that discrimination is fine as long as it's justified and rational and proportional. So as long as you can find strong enough evidence to justify why it should be legal to discriminate, then it's okay. Now, that, again, speaking as a scientist now, that disappoints me, because if you recognize something to be discriminatory, then the bar goes from here to here. Now the evidence needs to be that much better, and they've decided that it was. And I can't understand that, because the evidence was so bad.
Like, when you look at, I mentioned the comments from Seb Coe that have come out since, the IAAF president, obviously. I think it's pretty straightforward, and it's very straightforward for any international federation in sport. Athletics has 2 classifications. It is age, it is gender. We're fiercely protective about both, and I'm really grateful the Court of Arbitration for Sport has upheld that principle. He obviously had wanted to get the result that he wanted to get, which he did get. But it's, again, kind of weird that the IAAF are so unwilling to engage with the idea that gender is no longer the very straightforward conversation that it was even 10 years ago.
Yeah, his statement there, very straightforward, flies in the face of the fact they've been in a 9-10 year battle trying to win this case, and only now have they finally gotten over the line. And even the CAS decision makes very clear that this is more complex than that. You know, when you read that CAS decision, even the summary, it has certain schizophrenic properties, because in one sense it's coming very strongly on the side of the IAAF, but on numerous occasions it says, this is complex, we don't understand this fully, we're not quite sure about that, there's some problems here. And they listed actually a few things that they suggested should be looked at. And that alone tells you that this is not clear-cut. We're still sitting in a massive grey area. And I just want to be clear. When we talk about men, so someone who's born a boy, raised by his family and his community as a boy, becomes a young man and then an adult male, and then that person wants to compete in women's sport, a transgender male to female. That's very clear. A situation where you have to intervene and you have to do something to take away that theoretical advantage. No one should have any objections about that. And so this policy applied to that group, no problem. I will be fully on the IAAF side there. But this policy applied to a group that lies on the spectrum. So this is not someone born male, not someone who was recognized early in their life as a boy and then a man. That's a lot more difficult. And the IAAF regularly conflate those two groups. They're completely different groups. Transgender ESDs are not the same group of people, and I don't think you can talk about them in the conversation the same way, which is what Paula Radcliffe was doing for the last month, and I think it muddies the waters either ignorantly or on purpose.
On a personal level for Caster Semenya, there's been support for her, and a lot of it from officialdom. You mentioned the United Nations, from South African athletics as well, and I did wonder, because she doesn't do a huge amount of media, I wondered about the toll it's taken on her, or otherwise, or how willing a face or how willing a voice she is for this.
Yeah, I don't know. Not willing, obviously. She has said a couple of times in the few, as you say, she's not out there a lot. In the few situations she's spoken, she said how much she resents this and how much it has tarnished her career from the moment she won in 2009. And of course, even people who agree with this CAS decision should be sympathetic towards Semenya. But I don't know what her mind is at the moment. She obviously has a few massive decisions to make. She has two legal options. She can challenge it or she can accept it. And then she has three performance options. She can take the meds and stay at the 815. She can not take the meds, run 3,000, 5,000, or she could actually just say, you know what, I'm done. This is too much. It's been 10 years. I'm out of here, and she could actually retire. So I don't know where her mind is. I hope she's getting good support in this regard and that she ends up making the best decision.
Do we know, Ross, what would happen if she did take the meds and compete? How drastically would her performance kind of hit the floor?
Yeah, that's one of many million-dollar questions. Theoretically, she would slow down by some amount. I was going to say considerably, but that might be guessing. The problem, obviously, is that testosterone is such an important hormone in the body. So everything testosterone does now goes backwards. So if testosterone changes lean mass up, she'll lose muscle mass. If testosterone brings fat down, she's going to gain fat mass. Her hemoglobin levels will drop, and she won't recover as much from training because testosterone is an anabolic hormone. So that combination of four things adds up to significant performance impairment. Plus, there are side effects of medication which potentially take away from performance, kind of independent of what testosterone is actually doing in the body. So all told, I would not be surprised to see between 5 and 7 seconds, maybe even more, but I genuinely don't know.
And it's not the most terrible thing about this, but another terrible thing about this is she could be taking a medication to take 5 or 7 seconds off her time, and somebody could be covertly taking a medication to add or to take 5 or 7 seconds off their time in a positive way, and we won't know what they're actually taking. We don't know what's actually going undetected.
Right, so this one is in the shop window, so everyone sees it, but like at a restaurant, you don't see how it gets made, but you criticize the obvious mistakes. And so there is an issue here about, the whole CAS concept is it's about balance. You got to balance two sets of people's rights. Other female athletes have a right to fair competition. Semenya has a right to be treated with dignity and not have her medical health potentially violated. One of the other rights here is based on, from a population level, the fact that these athletes with PSDs are rare. They're not 1 in a million. I think probably at 2011, 2013, there were 10 of them. So you're probably watching at any World Championships, you're probably seeing between 10 and 15 athletes with a similar condition. Now, Caster Semenya is one The athlete Francine Saba is another one, because she told us 2 weeks ago that she had the same condition. But I guarantee you, anyone watching this, if you've watched a lot of track and field, you've seen 15, 20 athletes with this condition or one of these conditions, and you haven't known about it. Now, 15 or 20, I promise you there are more dopers than that.
Mm-hmm.
The people are getting outraged about this, and then they're apathetic and a lot softer on doping, and that also seems to me to be inconsistent.
Yeah. She runs obviously in Doha today, and as you say, where her career lies after that, we don't know. We shall watch and we shall wait and see, and wait for the developments in this one as well. Ross, thanks a million for taking the call.